Am I the a-hole for sending a recording of my ex asking to open our relationship to her parents? I am 26, broke up with my girlfriend of 4 years, Mary, F27, about a month ago because she asked me to open our relationship. It is, was, and always will be a major line in the sand for me, something that I have opened up to her about in the past. We've had a great relationship, and the only thing that stands out, and the only reason it stands out now is because of this situation, is that she progressively started making a lot more sexual jokes about some of our shared friends over the last few months. Some involved her being with them, and others were throwaway jokes, etc. I won't lie, I played along a little, but I consistently made some joking response along the lines of, "You're more than enough for me," or "I don't like sharing," and I never took any of it seriously because why would I? Until she asked, and I found out and realized that she was probably trying to gauge my response and see how open I was. Mary asked when we were getting ready for bed about a month ago, kinda bluntly. I was scrolling on my phone, and she was getting changed, and she says, "If I asked you to open the relationship, would you?" And this might sound super corny, but it was like I had an out-of-body experience, and all of the above hit me at once. All the jokes and comments so far made sense in a "she's trying to butter me up to the idea" kind of way, and I went really numb for a second. To her credit, she must have seen how freaked out I was and asked if I was okay, and I pretended I didn't hear her and asked her to repeat herself, and she was really hesitant to. Kept saying she didn't say anything, and then only repeated it when I insisted. Then I went to voice notes, set it to record, and put my phone down to talk to her. I don't remember much of it, just that I tried to stay calm and keep her talking, but the note is just over an hour and a half long, and it feels like I'm listening into a conversation that happened between two strangers. She trickle-truthed all the way through it and ultimately stuck to the idea that she hadn't been cheating and she didn't have any one person in mind, but had been fantasizing about mutual friends and people at work and seemed to get the idea that they'd be open to something if she asked. A lot of it is her being defensive and me trying to needle information out of her without it escalating into an argument. A lot of me placating her and trying to make her feel comfortable enough to keep talking. The apartment is mine, and I suggested we take a break a few nights later, so she went to stay with a friend for the weekend. By the next Monday, I'd spoken to some of my friends and my sisters separately and came to the conclusion that we were done, and suggested she started looking for somewhere else to stay. She was upset but didn't really argue, and had the vast majority of her stuff out and at her parents' house by the end of the week. So, coming to 2 days ago, her mom reached out over WhatsApp to say she was disappointed in how I'd handled everything. The message wasn't really framed in a way that she was reprimanding me, more that she wished we could have worked it out. She then added me to a group chat with her husband, my ex's stepdad, and they both kind of tag-teamed me, saying that we could work it out, and I was making a mistake and that I shouldn't overthink things. I eventually got it out of them that my ex had fed them a very vague story that we had broken up because she'd wanted to take the next step in our relationship, and that I had freaked out. And then we had an argument, and then she had been effectively kicked out. Her stepdad was leaning on the fact that he thought I was more mature than this, and her mom just kept repeating how disappointed she was in this whole situation. So I was pissed. In the heat of the moment, I told them I had the recording of our conversation that I could send them that would explain what she actually meant about taking the next step. I initially tried to email it to them, but it was being a ball ache, so I eventually shared it via Drive. In the meantime, I took a few screenshots of my ex and I's messages, ones where she had made jokes and comments about sex with her friends and a lady from her office, and I sent them along to that shared group chat. I haven't heard back since. Again, it's been 2 days, and I don't feel as vindicated anymore. A good few of my ex's comments were about other women, and I'm freaking out because I don't know how, if at all, open she's been about her sexuality with them. I also think I shouldn't have engaged at all, and I shouldn't have felt the need to prove my innocence to either of them. So, am I the a-hole? I've checked in with friends and over social media, and it doesn't look like there has been any fallout. Also, my ex blocked me a week ago before I spoke to her parents, so I can't really contact her without going in person. And at this point, is it too late to even give her a heads up or a check-in? Edit. To address a few points I have seen in multiple comments, we don't live in the US, and we have no laws on recording private conversations on the books. I'm not proud of doing it, but it wasn't illegal. Mary and I had several mature, calm conversations about what we both wanted out of this relationship. Mary wasn't sure if she wanted to stay and kind of admitted to self self-sabotaging by asking about opening the relationship. Mary and I have been friends since we were 11. Her mom was my coach when I swam competitively, and our friend group and families are very close and intermingled, so she was wary about what would happen if we went on a break or fully broke up. I was not trying to punish her for being open to polyamory. Also, trigger warning below, but Mary and I are both bi. And when I was in my last year of high school, I was involved in an inappropriate relationship with a teaching assistant. He was arrested and registered as an offender, but during the time we were involved, he convinced me to be with other people as well. He effectively pimped me out for a year and physically assaulted me when I eventually said no and tried to cut him off. Mary knew all of the above, as she helped me through it at the time, and I was very clear that I can't do something like that again. I know that what I went through wasn't an actual open relationship, but it was very much framed as one, and that has stuck with me. I would never put down other people for doing it, but I still made this all very clear to Mary in the other serious relationship I was in before her. I've carried a lot of issues from then into future relationships, and I am in therapy and have worked with Mary to not punish her for what other people have done to me, but for as great and supportive as Mary was, she did have an issue with trying to gaslight me. She would say one thing and then typically, during an argument, would vehemently argue otherwise and genuinely make me question myself. It took her coming to therapy with me and sometimes me showing her text messages for her to realize that this was a problem and we had been working on it together. Me recording her was still not right, but it wasn't an attempt to gather something incriminating, it was just a response. It was a poor response that I shouldn't have done, but it wasn't malicious, nor did I intend to send it to anyone at the time. Also, since making this post and reading your replies, I have gone back to her parents to apologize. I did initially try and tell them that she wasn't being honest and that I wanted to keep things private, but they kept going on about me being immature and that this was disappointing. I'll be honest, I got a bit angry again rereading some of their messages, but it really didn't warrant me outing Mary the way I did. I appreciate everyone's judgment. Then OP provided more information in the comments section and said, "She has gaslit me in the past, outright lied about what she said or what I said, and worked really hard to convince me that I was misremembering things. This has been more recent within the last year, and she came to therapy with me to discuss it, and we were working past it. If I'm being honest, I recorded that conversation because I knew she'd lie about it, but I assumed she would lie to me about what she said, not to other people. I wasn't trapping her to expose her to tell the world later. I wanted it so I can go back and prove I wasn't going crazy if/when we inevitably argued about it. But in the end, we didn't argue. We kept things civil and broke things off maturely. I mentioned none of it to anyone, just said we wanted different things and we weren't compatible anymore, and as her parents were berating me, I just felt bitter. I felt like I'd done everything right, and this is my reward for it? And you're right, I took it way too far, and I crossed the line in dumping all of that in her parents' lap. But what I will say, I did leave her one support system alone up until the point she wound them up and sent them after me, intentionally or not. I am not proud of freaking out and exposing her to her parents. I'm genuinely not. But I didn't go in with the intention of exposing her to anyone, and she decided to respond to that by lying about me kicking her out for not wanting to marry her. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "You're defending yourself because she couldn't be honest and unleashed her parents on you. Any results are her responsibility, not the a-hole." I don't think she intentionally put her parents on me, but I also feel like I don't even know who she really is at this point. I also don't like the feeling of just making crap difficult for her, even though she's clearly still telling half-truths. Then user 2 commented and said, "You're not the a-hole for feeling the need to defend yourself against your ex's lies to her parents, but sharing the recording and screenshots was probably not the best approach." That's kinda where I have been stewing for the past few days. I don't feel bad for defending myself, so to speak, but yeah, I feel like I went too far, especially with the screenshots. I am furious with her, but I also don't want to see her hurt or put out from her family because of me. I just wish I could be angry, tell her to go F herself and move on. Then user 3 commented and said, "You are the a-hole. Sharing those private details was too much. You could have told them the truth, but to expose such an intimate conversation was crossing the line. She wasn't an a-hole. She's right to ask the question, but if it's not for you, it's not for you. It's as if you're punishing her for having different sexual standards towards you. Also, why do you care what her parents think of you? She's obviously glossed over the details because she doesn't want to share her sexual fantasies, which is completely normal. There's a lot of baggage for me personally with open relationships that I've been open with her about in the past. It is fairly heavy, and I don't want to just dump it on you, but she very much asked the question knowing I would say no, and that I wouldn't be willing to continue our relationship because of it. However, whether you believe me or not, and I wholly understand if you don't, I'm not trying to punish her for being polyamorous or for being open with me about it. As for her family and me, we've actually known each other since we were preteens. I used to swim competitively, and her mom was my teacher, then coach, and also worked with me at our high school. She's effectively a second mother to me, and her stepdad, and I have been on really good terms with them, and I think that's why I took them reprimanding me so personally. But it wasn't right of me to expose that side of her to them in the way that I did. Then user 4 commented and said, "How would you have handled it knowing what you know now?" To be honest, I'd have just stopped responding. I had already said that she wasn't telling the truth, but hadn't exposed what had actually happened. Ultimately, being labeled as a guy who isn't ready for marriage isn't bad. And finally, user 5 replied and said, "But it affected your relationship with her parents, and she needed to learn it's not okay to lie and sabotage your relationship with them. Even revealing true things is iffy." I know. I love her parents. No matter how angry and upset I am, I still love Mary too. And though her lies piss me off, I could live with it. If it had escalated, I could have met with them in person and played some of the conversation to clear my name. But sending the screenshots was too much, and I know my intentions at the time were malicious. I wasn't just doing it to clear my name, I was doing it because I was mad and wanted to hurt them and hurt her. Looking back, I am not proud of that and would have rather taken the L. Update. Hi everyone, I want to preface this with a genuine thank you. I came to this sub because my mind was all over the place yesterday, and you all helped me clear it up a little, even the people who clearly weren't trying to be helpful. As a result, on reflection, I'm not sorry for recording her. I understand that people don't like the idea of being recorded by an intimate partner, especially when having an intimate conversation, and you naturally support Mary on that front out of solidarity. But all I can say is, you don't know what Mary is like or what our relationship was like either. A little before she came to therapy with me in the incident that pushed me to try and get her to come with me, Mary texted me to pick her up a Smarties McFlurry on the way home from work from McDonald's. When I brought it home and gave it to her, she told me she asked for a dairy milk one that they don't even do here anymore, and then she rolled her eyes at me for not listening to her again. And trying to show her what she had sent me led to a 15-minute shouting match, which resulted in her throwing her ice cream at the wall and shattering my phone screen. That is one incident of many. She once told me I was flirting for holding the door open for a group because there were girls that I was clearly trying to impress, and then she went on such a long tirade about my male chivalry, and it was just a selfish way to gain attention from women beyond her. I am not apologizing anymore for recording her. I wouldn't have had such a visceral need to defend myself if I wasn't with someone who kept hurting me. I made that recording because I knew she would lie, and she did, but I thought she would lie to me, not to other people, and I wanted it strictly so I had her words there on my phone should she start claiming she said anything else. At the end of the day, though, we didn't end up having any of that, and we parted in a mature way. I understand that a lot of you won't believe that was my intention, and I'll just have to live with that. Beyond all of that, I am still sorry for sending it to her parents as a way to get back at her. Her parents have always been very pro-LGBTQ+, so although it wasn't right to out her, I was massively overthinking them harming her or kicking her out. At most, exposing her interest in polyamory would have embarrassed her, but nothing I shared would have put her in any danger. That being said, I saw red during that exchange and saw that this was a way to finally show people I wasn't misremembering things. It was spiteful and vindictive, and I can see so many different ways I could have dealt with the situation more calmly, but I was angry and I didn't do any of them, and for that, I am still sorry. Like I said in the edit to my previous post, I apologized to her parents. I apologized for getting angry, cussing them out, and for sharing private information about their daughter to them. I fully acknowledged that I was being spiteful and that it was a harsh escalation of a response. Anne and Paul, which is what I will call them for this post, accepted it at face value, but asked if I could come over for lunch this afternoon so we could have an actual conversation. It was nice, but really awkward too. Mary wasn't there, and I apologized again, and Paul and Anne said they were sorry for interfering and not giving me a chance to tell my side. We both agreed that we had acted inappropriately, and that going forward, we wouldn't involve ourselves in this topic. We left things on relatively better terms, but I'm not going to talk to them for a while. Above everything else, they are Mary's parents, and they always will be in her corner. As parents, they should be, so keeping my distance is in everyone's best interest. As for Mary, she unblocked me late last night and let loose a tirade of angry messages. They, mostly, of course, consisted of how creepy and disgusting I was for recording her. Again, I recorded her because I knew she would lie, and all she did was prove my point, to which, despite still cussing me out, she had no real response for. I got from her, Anne, and Paul that things are understandably awkward after what I'd shared, but she's still staying with them for the time being. They've not discussed it with her beyond letting her know that they'd heard the recording and now knew that she'd lied, but there's been no indication of negative consequences. And that's it. I am reeling from 4 years of a relationship being over, of my girlfriend and best friend using my own trauma as a way to make me break up with her, and then pretending everything was okay just to lie about me behind my back. But what is hurting me more is how I only now understand, from reading replies to my post and talking to my friends, that I was with yet another abuser, and I am nowhere near as strong or as over what happened to me as I thought. Thanks for your help. Then OP provided more information in the comments section and said, in addition to my post, I want to make something crystal clear. The people still going through the comments claiming that Mary asking for an open relationship is some indicator of modern women or her being inherently promiscuous or using it to push some narrative were weird and annoying. In addition, the people who were deliberately skewing the order of events and or tried to patronizingly psychoanalyze me and to try and frame me as worse than I actually am were especially unhelpful. I understand that what I did stuck a nerve with a lot of people, and I wholeheartedly recognize how I did not do what a lot of people would have preferred I do in that situation, but I came to this subreddit for advice and judgment. So please judge me for what I did, not what you think I did. And finally, OP responds to multiple comments about not seeing signs and red flags in the first post and said, you're right. I've had a month to process the relationship, and yesterday was a very real eye-opener that the relationship I was in was neither healthy nor great. I went into that post looking for advice on what I had done with her parents, not to slander my ex-girlfriend or litigate our relationship. I'm somewhere in the middle here. I kind of essentially just agree with OP's mindset of he probably shouldn't have shared the full thing in the screenshots and put it on the drive. But also, he should have defended himself. I also understand why he recorded himself. She's lying. She lies to him. She gaslights him. She's abusive. Maybe not physically, but she broke his phone. And also, she threw ice cream at the wall. Ice cream is my top 3 favorite foods, so I will not tolerate ice cream disrespect. I also didn't know that a Smarties McFlurry was a thing, but now I want that. But I digress. To me, it sounded like an almost knee-jerk reaction, like the conversation happened and he thought to himself, oh boy, here we go, I need to record, because he knows what happens next. He knows his relationship better than anyone else. So again, I don't think it's wrong for OP for wanting to defend himself, but I do think maybe he went a bit too far, and even though Mary's not the best person, I don't think that she deserves to be outed like that to her parents. But I do think maybe OP could have showed certain parts of the conversation, or at least talk about it, but I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to defend yourself. I just think he went a little too far. Anyway, next story. Story number 2. I am leaving my family. I'm typing this in a mix of fear and nerves. I am the youngest, 22 of 5 kids. M30, M28, F28 twins, and F25. My parents are heavily religious and we live in Utah. Growing up, everything had to be done perfectly. It didn't matter if it was grades, looks, social activities, or even friends. I'm different from my siblings as I was never interested in the maths and science like they were. I've always been the writer, the painter. I remember once when I was 13, I made a painting of a dove in a snowy field and won first place in the competition. I told my parents, who then got angry that I had wasted my time with something so worthless when I should have been using time to study. I still had A's in every class. My mother won't even say more than a few words to me. She always seems like she hates me, and I don't understand why. Father burned the painting to remind me of what was truly important before taking all of my art supplies, until I showed more responsibility with my time. It's been like this as long as I can remember. I work full-time, and have since I was 15 at McDonald's, dashing every bit of money I could. Father took half of my checks as tithing to help teach me what being an adult was like. I applied to several colleges but was told by my parents that they would not be helping me with tuition as they did for my siblings because they thought sending me to college would just be a waste of money. So I got angry, and I'm so tired of being the black sheep just because I like the arts more than math and science. And then I heard them talking when I got up in the middle of the night about the perfect man they'd found who was willing to take me in. All this being done through our church, and I am terrified. And so I'm leaving. I've got money saved up and a good amount, and I'm leaving the country. I found a job that's let me work remote doing freelance design work, and I've had my passport since I was a kid because of our family vacations overseas. I'm taking nothing other than a change of clothes, my laptop, and important documents I took out of my father's office. I booked a flight that leaves in 5 hours, and I'm never coming back. I'm not even going to take my phone since I'd need to get a new number anyway. My best friend, God bless her, had been the one booking things and getting everything ready since I couldn't tip off my parents. She's also smuggled some of my more important things that I can't take with me, and she's going to hold on to them for me. She's parked down the street, and I'll leave with my smallest suitcase to meet her. I don't know how they will take this, and I'm terrified they'll find a way to drag me back or track me down. They went to bed over an hour ago, but I'm too anxious to sleep. I don't know if I'll have any updates, but I just hope that they don't stop me. Update number 1. Wow, so much has been happening lately that it's kept my head on a swivel constantly. I'll start with the good part of the update before moving on to the less happy bits. So, I was advised to remove the location destination from my post, so all I will say is that I'm in South Africa right now, and it's amazing. The food is astonishing, and a poster here messaged me to recommend that I try bunny chow, which is an actual authentic curry in a bread bowl. It was phenomenal. I got to chatting with one of the hotel staff, and she's about my age, and we really hit it off. She went with me to local shopping centers to get some new and better clothes. At least I'm used to wearing dresses, so that doesn't faze me, and they're very lightweight and breathable, unlike a lot of US dress fabrics. She also told me to always shake out my shoes every morning just in case. I've started my apartment hunting, and it's well within my budget, like super low compared to how sky-high it is in the US. It's honestly jaw-dropping, like $81 for a studio apartment with a loft and kitchenette. So yeah, housing won't be an issue, and it is a bit odd to be house shopping for myself when I've always lived with my parents. Now on to the less pleasant bits. I finally opened the emails, deciding it was best to probably get it over with. And my father's email was filled with anger. There was no other way to put it. He said that by taking off irresponsibly like I did, that it cost them the friendship of someone that they'd planned of introducing me to. He never admitted that it was the 53-year-old they basically sold me to. Father stated that because of the social relationships that had been damaged and impacted by my actions, I owe them approximately $85,000 in reparations. He also claims that he will be taking me to court if I don't pay it in full within 30 days and return home, as I obviously cannot be trusted. I plan to ignore that as I believe him to be bluffing. His email then ended with a rant saying, "You belong to me, and I won't tolerate such defiance when we've put a roof over your head and taken care of you for your entire life. You were never the child we expected. It's time you make up for your deficiencies. I expect you home within the next 2 weeks." Yeah. No. My siblings were basically copies of my father's email, admonishing me for throwing the efforts of our parents in their faces before running off like a coward, unwilling to face the fallout of my actions. I skimmed through them honestly before just deleting them. It's nothing I didn't expect. However, my sister-in-law, she's married to my eldest brother, sent her own email before asking me not to reply, as she would be deleting every sign she sent it from her end. She congratulated me on stepping out on my own and getting away from my parents and their demands. She said that she herself hadn't been strong-willed enough to stand up to her parents when they basically betrothed her to my brother, which makes sense as I remember that they met and then married within 6 months. and even then, I thought that was a bit strange. She pleaded with me not to return and not to reply. That was it. It was a bit unnerving, honestly, as I do believe her, and I'm sad that she is stuck the way she is. The last email was from my best friend. She said that the morning after I flew out, my parents had been on their doorstep demanding to see me. Apparently, they believed I was hiding with her. They refused to leave, screaming for me to stop pretending I wasn't there. It caused enough of a scene that the police were called, but they only talked to my parents briefly and let them leave. It really angered my friend, who'd wanted them arrested for threats and trespassing. The police only claimed that there wasn't a pattern of behavior that would warrant them being arrested and charged, and then they just left. And before leaving, she didn't know when they realized I wasn't there at the house, but they didn't come back, thankfully. However, word has spread of me fleeing the safety of my parents' home and how they wanted me to return as they were concerned and fearful of what may happen with me out on the streets alone. The church ward has actually done searches of the area, trying to find me. I don't know what they'll do from here, but they have no idea I left the country, let alone the state. My friend has no plans to say anything, and neither do I. As far as I'm concerned right now, they can live with that state of wondering for the rest of eternity. I don't think I will renounce my US citizenship, as there may come a day when I need it, and it's better to be safe than sorry. But I have full plans to gain dual citizenship as soon as I am able to. So, that's it for now. No other parts yet, but if anything changes, I'll let you know. I want to thank you all for your comments and private messages. It feels like I've got friends and family on my side, and I cannot tell you how much that means to me. Truly, thank you, all of you. Update number 2. So much advice and support from everyone, and I cannot thank you all enough. I thought with all the comments and questions, I thought I would answer here and explain what's happened since my last post. Ironically, my use of maths instead of just math comes from my mother, who is British and met my father in England when they were 22. So, I do come by it naturally, and my siblings say it that way as well. I thank you for drawing my attention to the TikTok videos broadcasting my story too, though why they changed the name, I don't know. I did report them, but we'll have to see if they ever pull the videos down or at least edit them. Second is people questioning why I chose South Africa and Johannesburg, of all places, because of how dangerous it can be. I do understand the risks, but there is nowhere on this planet that is inherently danger-free. Africa is massive and incredibly diverse. Finding someone would be very difficult, and because those videos got so much attention, I have left Johannesburg, sadly. I'm very far though, and obviously still in Africa. The area that I'm in now is incredibly safe and came highly recommended by several people. Settling here will be very comfortable, and the people are wonderful, and I may even attend the university here and get a degree. I haven't replied to the emails, but I have saved them and printed copies and laminated them just in case. I also will not be renouncing my US citizenship, and my passport is good for another 8 years. And I don't hate religion, regardless of what it is. In my eyes, a person's relationship with God is incredibly personal. If a person connects with him via camping or walks, long drives, listening to music, acts of service, that's their choice, and it's just as valid in my opinion as sitting in a pew is. Possibly more, as they're honest with themselves instead of just putting on a false facade for the public eye. I plan on ignoring any further emails from my family, other than printing them out just in case. They've made several phone calls to my friend, who's had fun with them. She said to me, "The first time your father called yelling that I hand you over, I pretended to be cowed, and I gave him your location, and it took him to a strip club. He came back screaming at how I embarrassed him, and then I just hung up on him, honestly." She did that each time they called, giving a different location each time. Her favorite was sending my parents to a nudist retreat, and my mother passed out apparently. My friend is looking to move and eventually plans to join me, but will jump around a bit so that they don't follow her to me. I did finally read my uncle's email, but it was just a copy of my father's with the added comment that he and his fellow cops would be looking for me to bring me home safe before I got myself in trouble and hurt. I am being watchful, and I know better than to wander in dark alleyways and abandoned places. And that's all I've got for now. If anything changes, I'll let you all know. It's heartwarming seeing and reading how many people are on my side and in my corner. I've actually begun printing out everyone's messages and comments to put in a binder that I can look back on later. Truly, thank you all. I mean it. Then in the comment section, OP elaborated on her being forced to marry even though she's an adult and said, "Pressure via local church wards. It is easier to move on when I don't have them standing over me, forcing their choices in place of my own. I honestly don't know if I'd be strong-willed enough to stand up to my father in person just yet. Maybe one day in the future when I know who I am outside of what I've been forced to be." Update number 3. Hello everyone, it's been a while since my last update, and a few things have happened that I was told by my friend that I needed to share since everyone was still clearly rooting for me. I have settled in a bit here, and I am now enjoying the fun of paperwork. Oh, so much paperwork. And I've secured an apartment, and while it's 2 bedrooms, one is for my friend when she comes to join me. I've made a few acquaintances here locally, and I'm beginning to stand on my own a bit. My biggest challenge has been dealing with feeling uncomfortable because I don't know all of those unspoken rules the way I did in the US. As such, I'm constantly second-guessing myself, but hopefully that will fade with time. So, on to my family. My family has learned I left the state. How they did, I'm not sure. They do, however, seem convinced that I am still in the continental US. My friend works as a cartoonist, and while she doesn't make a large amount of money, she makes more than enough to live comfortably. She's getting ready to leave herself and decided to send my parents a farewell gift. She didn't tell me about this until a little bit ago, but she spent a few hours carefully drawing my parents as they visited each location she sent them to, including their reactions, and all scenes were ended with the phrase, "That's all, folks." Sadly, while I've never seen Looney Tunes, as she named it, she said she portrayed my dad as similar to a coyote? I'm still not 100% sure what that means, but she said everyone else would. And then she ordered me to watch it. Maybe I will one day. And she should be joining me around October 9th after country hopping several times. All the things she hasn't sold are in a secured storage unit, including the things that she's been holding onto for me. As for the biggest revelation, came after my father. Well, he had a meltdown apparently after I never responded to him. He got into a fight with my mother in church, and many things were said. Amongst those things was apparently that my mother had cheated on my father, which, well, led to me, which is why she never liked me, as I guess I just reminded her of her mistakes. My father took her back in spite of that, but well, there it is. It caused a big stir in the ward, and meetings were held, though I obviously don't know what was said or done, and I may never know, honestly. I'm trying to move on, and I'm even contemplating getting a tattoo. Part of me really wants to, while another points out that if I change enough and father finds me, he won't want me then. And that's really all for now. I'm not sure if I'll have anything else to share, but if anything happens, I'll let you all know. Thank you all for the messages and comments. I do read them all, and it means more than you will ever know. Update number 4. Hello everyone, sorry this update has taken so long. Once my friend arrived, things got really hectic. She's been settling in well, and it has been a huge relief to have her here with me, as it gives me a sense of security that I didn't really have before. We've been taking this time to build new routines, finding a new normal, I guess, that works for us both. It's been a challenge, but at the same time, everything has been so different one day to the next that it's kept the days from seeming boring or blurring together. One of the elderly neighbors I've been talking to a lot since I moved here has also invited the both of us to spend Christmas with her and her family. They're going to have a goat as the main meat, which is different, but I'm excited to try. It's odd to not see Christmas trees everywhere, but that's still a new thing, so it's not common here. But her granddaughter is teaching my friend and I some of the dances we will be doing, as Christmas celebrations here are more like a festive party and gathering rather than a slow day spent with just gifts. It's odd, as even in my family, we'd only ever be given 3 gifts. One for our body, one for the mind, and the last for the soul to honor the Trinity, according to my parents. Last year, I think I received a new Sunday dress, a set of physics textbooks, and a new log journal for my scripture reading. After gift openings, we'd each retreat to our rooms and remain there until dinner was ready, usually made by my mother and myself. Yet here, they're planning on doing our hair, having dances and music with food and laughter. Gifts are still given, obviously, but the day is spent more with those around you than on material things. And I am excited. I've decided to ignore my family for now. I've gotten a lot of questions on why I didn't report them or confront them, and the answer is easy, and maybe it might seem a bit childish, but the thought of facing them like that terrifies me. I don't want to be around them, talk to them, or think about them. I'm genuinely scared that trying to bring justice will only drag me right back into the mess I ran from. I'm 22, and yet I'm terrified of my own family. So that's why I'm not doing anything to them. I just want to pretend, even if only for a bit, that my life isn't messed up and freakish, if that makes any sense at all. I don't know where I will be a year from now, but somehow the thought doesn't worry me. I'm happy, genuinely happy, and excited to see where things will go from here. Thank you, everyone. Really, I mean it. Looking back, it's mind-blowing how things have changed, and there is still so much I get to do. I know there are people here from all over the world, and I'd love to hear your holiday traditions. I don't care if it's not Christmas. I'd just love to hear what you do this time of year and your traditions. I'm trying to figure out my new normal and what I like, so I'd love any suggestions, be it food, music, dances, anything really. Thanks. Oh, Mormons, some of y'all be crazy. I'ma just say it, all right? Go on Google or Bing and type in Mormon soaking. Do some research into that. Might need to put on safe search. Definitely don't do it with the kids around or the boss. But, yeah, good for OP for just getting out and moving to Africa. And you know what? When she went on about those rent prices, I might join her too. $81 for a kitchenette, whatever that is. Is that just like a smaller kitchen, like a tiny kitchen? I don't know. You put "et" at the end of something and it's tiny and cute and adorable and it's cheap. $81. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna stop in the UK, buy a Smarties McFlurry, then go to Africa, and hope it hasn't melted, and enjoy it with a nice sunset in my new cheap apartment inside of my kitchenette. That sounds like a plan. I'll take the recording booth. Really Sparked is going to Africa. Anyway, next story. Story number 3. Am I the a-hole for asking my husband to cancel his bros-only trip to help me with our newborn after he promised he would? This situation has caused a lot of tension between my husband and me, and now I'm questioning whether I'm being unreasonable. I, 30F, gave birth to our first child, Olivia, 2 months ago. Being a first-time mom has been both beautiful and overwhelming. My husband, Jake, 32M, was incredibly supportive during the pregnancy and promised that after Olivia was born, he would be there for me every step of the way, especially during those challenging first few months. Before Olivia was born, Jake and his friends had been planning a bros-only trip for this summer, a week-long vacation to a cabin in the mountains for hiking, fishing, and bonding. When the trip was being discussed, I reminded Jake that Olivia would only be a few months old, and we would be deep in the newborn phase. He reassured me that if things got too tough, he would cancel the trip to help me out, and I trusted him. Now that Olivia is here, things have been harder than I anticipated. Between the sleepless nights, breastfeeding struggles, and just trying to adjust to motherhood, I've been feeling overwhelmed. Jake has been helpful, but I can tell he's excited about this trip, which is coming up next month. Last week, I asked Jake if he would consider canceling the trip, reminding him of his promise. I told him that I'm struggling and that having him gone for a whole week would be really tough on me. He seemed surprised and a bit hurt that I was asking him to cancel. He said he's been looking forward to this trip for months and that he needs a break too. He also pointed out that his parents live nearby and could help if I needed support while he was away. I understand that Jake needs a break and wants to spend time with his friends, but I can't help but feel like this is a time when I really need him by my side. I tried to explain that while I appreciate his parents' help, it's not the same as having him here. Jake said that I'm being unfair by asking him to cancel the trip after all the planning that went into it, and that I need to trust him to make sure I'm supported even if he's not physically there. Now we're a bit standoffish. Some of my friends think I should let him go, saying that it's important for him to have some time away, especially after all of the stress of becoming a new dad. But others agree that it's too soon for him to take off for a week, and that he should prioritize being home with me and Olivia. So, am I the a-hole for asking my husband to cancel his bros-only trip to help me with our newborn after he promised he would? Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "You were uncomfortable for 9 months. You went through labor, you are now breastfeeding, and what the F does he need a break from? He was a giant a-hole when he even planned this trip. He was a bigger a-hole when he lied about canceling, and he's the giant, gaping, insanely awful a-hole now that he thinks it's unreasonable for you to not want him to be gone for an entire week when you're already overwhelmed. It doesn't seem like you'd want his parents to stay for that week while he's gone. This made me furious. I hope this is his only misstep, though, and I doubt it, but anyway, not the a-hole." Then user 2 commented and said, "I assume Jake will be looking after Olivia for a week once you've stopped breastfeeding and can go away for a break. Let Jake know that if he uses his parents as free childcare, it will result in a further week of rest being required. Jake seems oblivious to the struggles you are facing with your child and selfishly prioritizes his own needs over you and Olivia." And finally, user 3 commented and said, "Not the a-hole. Part of being a parent is sacrificing your own wants and desires for your child. Part of being a good husband is listening to your wife when she says she needs you. Frankly, he should have considered canceling it when he knew the baby would be here by the time the trip came up." Update, same day. Hey everyone, I just wanted to give a quick update after reading through most of the replies. I was honestly overwhelmed by the amount of support and understanding I received. Thank you so much to everyone who took the time to respond. Your kind words and thoughtful advice really helped me feel less alone in this situation. A lot of you suggested that I should also take a week off, letting Jake stay with Olivia to get a break for myself. I really appreciate the sentiment behind that suggestion, but there are a couple of reasons why it's not realistic for me right now. First of all, I'm breastfeeding, so being away from Olivia for that long would be really difficult logistically. But beyond that, and this is something I need to work on now, I just don't feel comfortable being away from my baby yet. I know it's not healthy to feel like I can't have her out of my sight, but I can't help it. I guess it's just that new mom anxiety that's really hard to shake. I've been debating whether or not to show Jake this thread. I'm worried that reading it might hurt his feelings, but I'm definitely going to have another conversation with him about everything. I'm willing to compromise and let him go on the trip, but I think a whole week is just too much. I'm leaning towards suggesting that he limit the trip to a maximum of 3 nights, so he can still have time away with his friends, but not be gone for an entire week. I'll update again after we've talked. Thanks again for all the support, everyone. It really means a lot to me. Also, I'm new to Reddit, so I'm not sure if I should be posting updates or just editing the post, but anyway, thanks. Update. Hey everyone, I just wanted to share another update after having a very long and emotional talk with Jake. I won't get into every detail of our conversation, but I'll touch on the most important parts. After putting Olivia to bed, I went straight to bed myself, feeling utterly exhausted. Jake was already asleep, but for some reason, the weight of everything just hit me all at once, and I started crying uncontrollably. My sobbing woke Jake up, and he immediately asked me what was wrong. I told him that I was just tired, but then I opened up about how anxious I'd been feeling about his trip and being left alone with Olivia, and I admitted something that I've been reluctant to say out loud, that Jake hasn't been as involved as I thought he would be. This was one of my biggest fears when we found out we were having a baby. For context, Jake has a rocky relationship with his own dad. I won't go into detail about why his dad isn't the best, but his mom, my mother-in-law, remarried when Jake was in middle school, and his dad wasn't very persistent in his life. Jake has expressed to me before that becoming a father was scary for him because he's afraid of being a bad one, just like his dad. When he first told me that, I thought it would make him into a great father because it showed how much he cared about being a good dad long before we were even pregnant. And when I vented to him about all of this, at first, he tried to defend himself. He admitted that he's been freaking out about having a baby for so long and just didn't want to tell me. He said he didn't want to stress me out while I was pregnant because he knows how much I've always wanted to be a mother. Hearing him say that made me feel guilty, like I hadn't seen how much he's been struggling internally, and I had tried to convince him that he was going to be a great dad when we had this conversation long ago, and now it all felt more complicated. I thought to myself, this can't go on much longer, and I realized that if he was going to keep pulling away like this, I don't know if I could handle it. So I asked him, is this what our life is going to look like from now on? Me with Olivia and you away? Because if it is, Jake, then I don't think I can continue on like this. Then Jake told me to calm down and assured me that he wasn't going anywhere. Then he got really emotional. He even started to tear up. He said he didn't want to turn into his dad, and that he hadn't realized that going on this trip would be a preliminary step toward becoming the absentee father he feared he might be. He apologized for not considering me and Olivia as much as he should have. Long story short, Jake called his friends and told them he wouldn't be able to make the trip. He's even started planning a little family getaway for the 3 of us next year when Olivia is a bit older. It was a tough conversation, but I feel like we're on the same page now, and I'm hopeful that things will get better from here. Thanks again to everyone for your support and advice. It's been an emotional roller coaster, but I'm grateful for this community helping me navigate it. Beautiful. Love this story. Great adult conversation. That's me clapping, by the way. Don't get it confused. I say it so many times on this channel. I will always applaud people, even if they're the a-hole in the story. I will always applaud people for wanting to improve themselves, wanting to be a better person. I won't make fun of somebody for that. I can say, hey, I didn't like what you did before, and I think going away for a whole week was not a good idea, but he realized why it wasn't a good idea. And even better, he realized it before he left. So that's really good. And I'm glad we didn't get any comments, or at least read any here, that jumped to these gargantuan conclusions that he's abusing OP and he's on drugs and he owes money to the mafia or anything like that. But quite simply, it wasn't the best first impression of Jake, but we got a bit more into the story and his mindset, and he realized, like, oh crap, I'm slowly becoming the very thing I swore to destroy. That's a Star Wars reference for you, but you know what? They resolved it like adults, and that's always the best thing. Anyway, next story. Story number 4. New update to At My Wit's End. My son suddenly won't go into his room, but won't tell us why. We moved into a new house about a year ago so that my son, who turns 4 next month, can have his own room. We thought the transition would be rough, but he took to his room almost immediately and has had no issues. He loved his room, has all his toys in there, bedtime routines went smoothly, and most nights he dozes off after a couple of stories and a smooch on the head. He has his night lights too, and we keep his door open, even though he never mentioned being scared of the dark. Something changed on July 4th, though. He spent a good chunk of the afternoon playing in his room, even refusing to come downstairs for a bit. That same night, and every night since, he refuses to go into his room at all, insisting on sleeping in our room. He won't go in with us even holding hands, and if we're able to get him in for a second to retrieve a specific toy, he won't go all the way in, and then immediately runs back down the hall. He has no problem taking a bath in his bathroom across the hall, but he insists we keep the bathroom door closed. Then he runs straight from the bathroom to our room. We have asked him in all sorts of ways why he doesn't want to go to his room, and he'll deflect either by screaming "cowboy hat" or giggle while naming every animal he can think of. We're guessing he had a nightmare at some point, but he did spend the afternoon in his room with no problem on the day this started. We're not getting anywhere here, and as a result, I've been sleeping in his room while he shares our bed with my husband. Maybe I'm looking for someone who had a similar experience with their child that can offer up some fresh ideas, or maybe I'm just venting because I miss my bed. Edit. Thank you so much for all of your great responses, ideas, and stories. I think I may have cracked the case here, but now I have to figure out how to go about it. I was just grabbing something in his room around 3 p.m. today and heard what was definitely an animal scurrying on the roof, probably a squirrel. We have a metal roof and an exposed beam ceiling, so we hear any drop of rain, but I've never until now heard an animal. This would make sense as to why he sometimes keeps naming animals in his room. Now, if I'm right, I just have to figure out how to go about this. Then in the comments section, one user said, "My guess is he's either ashamed or scared. Could be fireworks like others are mentioning, or it could be really silly. Hopefully not a ghost. I'm thinking like he pooped in the closet, had a potty accident, vomited, broke or spilled something. Have you torn the room apart to make sure nothing is different about it?" My perception is that he seems more scared than ashamed. I've been sleeping in his room every night and checked every single corner. Nothing out of the ordinary. I don't think it's the fireworks because there were no fireworks going on in the early afternoon when he was actually in his room, and either way, he enjoys fireworks so much. We stayed outside all evening and watched them in both the front and back of the house. I've kept his room as normal and welcoming as possible, especially when he's taking a bath. He might crane his head around the corner to get a peek of his room, but ultimately turns and runs out. We've managed a few times to get him to walk a few steps in and grab a specific toy he's wanted, but then he bolts away. Update. After exactly 1 month, I finally figured it out. I've been busy, but I wanted to update because I'm still so stoked that he's back in his room. So, a couple of days ago, I got my son to acknowledge a couple of his toys from the doorway, and he stepped in a little bit with encouragement. I then took the opportunity to point at objects in his room, and he had a huge reaction to a Marvel poster that had been hanging over his bed since we moved in a year ago. He ran to our bedroom and hid under our covers, so I took it off the wall and walked it through the hallway. I stopped at our room for confirmation, and he freaked out when he saw I was holding it. I told him that it's going in the garbage, and he's never going to see it ever again. I hid it downstairs for later disposal, came back upstairs and told him it was gone, and he leapt out of our bed and hurried down the hall to his room and jumped in excitement that evil face is gone, and then he screamed in excitement about his Mario Kart bed, tossed my pillow off, threw his Mario pillow on, and tucked himself in. I was so ecstatic I danced around with him the rest of the night singing, "No more evil face," and we played with all the toys he missed. He slept in his room that night and has since been spending even more time in his room playing by himself. He brings up nightly that evil face is gone and his room is fun. To those who are curious, it was a Marvel-framed poster with like 100+ superheroes and villains. He had always named even some of the more obscure characters. My husband is a comic book guy and passed on this knowledge, and I'm not sure which character scared him in particular, but I theorize it was either MODOK or Ego the Living Planet. I didn't stop to have him point out which was the evil face, though. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "I knew it! Yes, Ego and MODOK have very evil faces. Another contender could be Armin Zola." That one too, but I couldn't remember his name. To be honest, when my husband put it up, I felt like one day he would be scared of some of the sinister faces on it, but it just didn't click since it had always been there. Then user 2 commented and said, "When my son was a baby, I put Mickey Mouse and Friends wall stickers near his changing table, and he got terrified of their eyes or something, and I had to remove them. When he was a preschooler, I bought him pajamas that had a polar bear face on them, and its eyes were angled and fierce looking. He was scared of it. So I took a Sharpie and rounded the polar bear's eyes and brought his eyebrows out and down to look kinder. I was proud of myself for that one." New update. Oh boy, here we go again. It's been a couple of weeks since my son has been back in his room, both soundly sleeping and happily playing, until the night before last. He won't go in there anymore. This time I brought him in and pointed at every part of the room. The only thing we're able to get out of him is, "I don't like my room," and that he had a bad dream. The morning he last slept in his room, I woke him up by accidentally making a bunch of noise downstairs. Otherwise, nothing sinister, and I've gone through every possibility once again. I do consider the possibility that he's scared of or had a dream that he got left behind, as I tend to leave the house early as of late, and I woke him up with front door opening noises. So I'm back in his room and back to square one. I enjoyed reading all of your responses on the other posts, and I'm trying to take it easy because I know these kids have their weird phases. But I just wasn't expecting this to happen again so soon. Small update. So I don't have to make another update post, but he's back in his room. He just waltzed in after I told him the Mario suit he was looking for was in there. He looked around for a minute and was like, "This is my room. I like my room. My bed. I like my bed. My room is fun." No rhyme or reason to it. Now I can't get him out, but it's alright. And then finally in the comment section, one user said, I went through a phase when I was about 6 where I was frightened of my room. I genuinely don't remember why I was. I think possibly nightmares or just bad feelings about being alone. One thing my mom did for me was make me a special good feelings spray bottle. I think it was mostly water, but I remember it had a perfume scent, so maybe it was rose water. It also had glitter in the spray gun, and anytime I went to my room, I would spray the bottle around with my mom, and it would make the room full of good feelings. And could you try something like that, OP? Would it work with him? So if we have any parents in the comment section or watching the video who's going through something similar to OP, please try the bottle of good feelings idea, because that is awesome. I'm an adult and I want a bottle of good feelings. Usually once you reach a certain age, it's called alcohol, but as a kid, this is way cooler. And it's magical and made of love and it smells of roses. Also, if you guys don't remember, we read this story like really recently. So I guess the update happened shortly thereafter we read it. But it's a really good idea, the spray bottle thing. Sometimes it's almost beautiful how easily we can trick kids, isn't it? In a good way, though. Anyway, next story. Story number 5. Will I be the a-hole if I just tell everyone the truth about what is going on, even though it would ruin my husband's image? I am dyslexic and have always been bad at grammar, so excuse me, please. And also, this is non-US. Okay, so my husband has been dealing with some major issues. We've not yet figured out what it is, but he's been dealing with certain delusions. For example, it all started 6 months ago when he was convinced he had caught me cheating because he found a document saying so on my laptop. When I arrived home and he tried looking for it to show me, he obviously couldn't find it. He is going to therapy, but as of right now, we are technically separated and living in different rooms. It's just because this keeps happening, a certain insecurity eats itself into my husband, and he becomes convinced that it's the truth. He either dreams proof or he just convinces himself that anything is proof. I don't know what he does with the therapist, but I honestly don't see it getting better. Last week, he was mad at our daughter, 15, because she didn't want him to drive her to prom and make pictures with her. When I went to ask her, she said that was not true. She had talked to her dad about what she would like to do when she graduates in 2 years, and her father just got really mad at the perceived slight. The problem is that he keeps talking to people about the issues, and I was already wondering why so many mutuals stopped responding to me, but apparently they all think I'm an awful human being and a terrible spouse. I just want to tell people what is going on, and also so that they are aware that my husband is basically lying to them, and for them to tell me delusions that he might be having that I don't know. But at the very beginning of his therapy, he begged me not to tell anyone because people would think he is crazy. My sister said that it would also be an a-hole thing to do, and it would basically feed into his delusions. So, I just feel like I am done. Am I the a-hole? Also, we already did a brain scan and MRI, and nothing was found. Then in the comments section, OP described the delusions more and said, "Obviously, I am not in the medical field, but I can't describe them as anything else, mainly because we do not have any of the things he convinced himself of. For example, he was convinced our oldest daughter, 19, was pregnant because she said no to sushi. She was just not in the mood for raw fish. So my husband obviously became obsessed with the idea that our daughter was pregnant, and he would go to full rants saying, 'How dare she? We gave her everything,' etc. Update. I thank everyone for their supportive words, especially the people that have been through something similar. Thank you so much for sharing with me. It makes me feel less alone. Also, just because I have seen that a lot of people have not been able to read my first post, I have tried everything from getting him to real psychologists to having him committed. And I have tried with his doctor, with my mother-in-law, and with my lawyer, but he has not broken the law or actually assaulted me, just threatened to end my life and our daughter for being WH words. But to the police, that does not matter because we don't matter. So, please, all the suggestions you have and suggestions to get him committed or that he might have a tumor or dementia or schizophrenia, please stop. I have no fight left in me. I also have no legal ground over him. I can't care anymore, or I will drive myself insane. He still has a support net, and he will never be alone. But that man is dangerous to me and my daughters, and the duty of a parent is above all else. So again, please stop suggesting what he could have or what I should do regarding him, because that job is no longer mine. Update. First of all, thank you all for your feedback and support. I took some time to process everything, and honestly, I was at my breaking point. The situation has escalated in ways I never imagined, and I've made some tough choices. After I posted, things started to unravel quickly. About 5 months ago, when my husband's behavior first started escalating, I quietly consulted with a lawyer here. At that time, his delusions had begun to affect our daily lives, and I knew I needed legal advice. The divorce process requires a period of legal separation before the divorce can be finalized. We initiated this process, and I requested full custody of our 15-year-old daughter, given her increasing fear of her father. The court was also concerned and ordered a psychological evaluation for my husband to assess his mental fitness for parenting. A few weeks into the legal separation, my husband's paranoia worsened. He started Apple AirTags in my car and in our 15-year-old's backpack, tracking our every move. My daughter was the one who found the AirTag in her bag and was terrified. When I confronted him, he insisted it was for our safety, but it was clear to me that his paranoia was spiraling out of control. This incident deeply affected our daughter, who began refusing to see her father. Around this time, my mother-in-law reached out to me. She was concerned because my husband had accused her of cheating on his father, something that was completely out of character for him. Father-in-law didn't believe it for a second, but was deeply worried about his state of mind. Her reaching out was a small but much-needed relief. She acknowledged that his behavior was erratic and offered her support, knowing that something was seriously wrong. My older daughter, 19, had also become involved in the situation. She had been quietly documenting her father's behavior for months. She recorded 3 different occasions where my husband went on delusive rants. The first was about how I'm supposedly cheating on him with one of my coworkers, a man I barely interact with. The second was about how our 15-year-old daughter was secretly dating someone older and lying to him about it. The third was about how the entire family was conspiring against him to make him look crazy. Watching these videos was heartbreaking, but they validated everything that I had been dealing with privately. Things escalated further when my husband almost attacked one of my colleagues. He had convinced himself that this man was the affair partner I was supposedly seeing behind his back, and it took all of my strength to physically separate them before the situation turned violent. As the legal process continued, my lawyer informed me that due to the severity of the situation and the psychological evaluation ordered by the court, my request for full custody was strongly considered. In Spain, courts typically prioritize the well-being of the child, and given my husband's mental state and the danger he posed, it seemed likely that I would be granted full custody of our daughter, who was 15 years old. She had made it clear that she didn't want to see her father, and the court was taking her wishes into account. In the midst of this, my 19-year-old daughter decided to take matters into her own hands. She posted the 3 videos she had recorded of her father's breakdowns on Instagram, along with a compilation of text messages, photos, and other evidence she had collected over the past few months. Her intention was to show the world what we had been enduring, but it quickly turned into a spectacle, publicly. The backlash was intense. Some people were horrified and reached out with sympathy and support, while others criticized us for airing dirty laundry and accused my daughter of betraying her father. As the divorce process continued, my husband's mental health became a significant factor. The psychological evaluation ordered by the court revealed the depth of his delusions, particularly around cheating and female sexuality. It became clear that he was not fit to make decisions regarding our daughter's well-being. The evaluation supported my claim for full custody, and the court is now in the process of finalizing that decision. In the meantime, all communication between my husband and me is being handled through our lawyers, and I'm ensuring that any interaction between him and our 15-year-old daughter is supervised. Given the severity of the situation and the damage done to our lives, I'm making plans to move away with my daughter once the legal proceedings are finished. My reputation in our current community is shattered, thanks to his delusions and the lies he has spread. Starting fresh somewhere new seems like the only way for us to heal and rebuild our lives. I never wanted it to come to this. I still care deeply for my husband, but I can't keep sacrificing our well-being for the sake of his image. The revelation that he's been lying to his therapist, or rather his unqualified life coach, was a breaking point for me. I realized I couldn't trust him to get better on his own. Thankfully, some friends have started to see through his stories and are reaching out to support us, which gives me hope. But I know it's going to be a long, difficult road ahead. For anyone else in a similar situation, please know that you're not alone. This has been the hardest decision I've ever made, but sometimes you have to do what's best for your own mental health and safety, no matter how much it hurts. Thank you again for all the advice, and I'm hopeful that this is the first step towards a better future, even if it's a painful one. So, while we don't know exactly what's wrong with OP in this story, we had a similar story recently where OP and her husband went crazy. It's very similar to this story, and it was confirmed schizophrenia, and he got crazier and crazier and crazier, and OP had to take her daughter and leave, just like this story. And I said some words and thoughts and opinions, and people took it and ran with it, and I think slightly misconstrued it, but also I think I slightly misspoke. And what I mean by that story, and what I mean by this story, is that I didn't like the outcome of what happens to the husband. But at the same time, I understand why OP needs to leave. I understand why it's harmful for the daughters, for both OPs, for both daughters. I'm just saying it's unfortunate that that is what became of the husband. And it's unfortunate that this is what becomes of the current husband in this story, while also understanding why OP needs to and should leave and respecting that. I'm just saying it's unfortunate. Okay, does that make sense? And that's what I think about for this story. It's, again, I'm not blaming OP for leaving. She should. Danger, remove yourself from danger. It's that simple. I'm just saying that it's unfortunate that this is what happens when somebody has potential schizophrenia or something like that. We don't know what's wrong with the husband here. But leaving is the right option. I'm not encouraging her to stay. I sure as hell didn't encourage the last woman to stay, and I'm not doing that here. Anyway, next story. Story number 6. My husband, 25M, wants to start going on regular dates with me again, 26F, and I'm a little sad. My husband John and I have been married for over 2 years and dated for about 3 years before that. Overall, we have a generally healthy relationship with good communication. When we first got married, we used to go on lots of dates. Not necessarily anything big, sometimes just coffee or a drive. But we went out of our way to get out of the house together for quality time. As time has passed, I have taken on more freelance work, keeping me busier. And he's started saying that he's just too tired or doesn't feel like getting ready to go out after work or on his days off. Up until now, I haven't had an issue with that. He does a lot of work, and I don't blame him at all. But here's where things have changed. A couple of months ago, he got really interested in digital marketing, basically selling products online. He bought an expensive course to help him learn, and has started trying to consistently post 3 times a day in order to build a following on a new Instagram account. So he's really putting a lot of work into this. I'm not holding my breath that it will work out for several reasons that I won't get into here, unless you want them, but I've never discouraged him from doing it. When he gets stressed, I encourage him. I tell him often that I'm proud of all his hard work, which I am, and I say so, etc. And I only mention that to say that I'm not against him trying this out, and haven't put him down for it ever. But this is why I've gotten a little sad. Last week, we went on a cute date after he got off work on Saturday, and I loved it. We laughed and talked and generally had a great time like those first dates after getting married. While we were on the date, I had an idea for a cute reel that took maybe 5 minutes to record, and then I put my phone away for the rest of the time. When we got home, I created and posted the Instagram reel, adding him as a collaborator with his new digital marketing Instagram account, at his request. I guess he's gotten advice to post real-life things and not just videos of him trying to sell. But anyway, no biggie. I didn't mind. Well, since I already have a following, small but bigger than his, that reel did better than any of the other ones on his account. Great, we both thought. But now he's asked to go on a small date every Saturday. At first, I was so happy. I'd love to get back to our regular dates. But then he said it would be so that we could get content for his page. He asked if I could be a collaborator on all or most of the posts, but if he could post them himself so he gets the credit for the engagement. I guess all the views, likes, etc. don't actually bump up his page analytics since I was the one who created the post, I guess. But anyway, I'm feeling hurt because for over a year, he hasn't shown much interest in taking me out. Now, all of a sudden, because he needs content and saw how I could help his view count go up, he wants to go on dates though. And I guess I'm just feeling used and like I'm not any kind of a priority. I feel like the dates won't even count as dates because he's not asking to go out to spend time with me. I do want to reiterate that I'm not opposed to him doing this side job, and I'm not even opposed to helping him out or collaborating on posts. Though I'd prefer not to do it every week, I'm actually really happy though, whether or not it works out as a moneymaker, that he's just putting a lot of effort into something that excites him. It's good. And I haven't seen him this into anything maybe ever, but I'm asking for advice because I don't know if I should bring this up to him or not. And if I do, what should I say? The last thing I want to do is make him feel bad or discourage him in his new endeavor, and should I just be grateful to be going on dates again? Am I being selfish? Thanks for any and all advice, and I'm sorry if this is long, and I am open to suggestions. Edit, because so many people are getting hung up on the double standard of me making content on the date, but not wanting him to, I just want to clarify that I'm not a content creator by any means. I asked if he'd want to do this reel, and he said yes, and it's not a regular thing as I don't post much. To me, the difference here is that the whole point of these dates moving forward will be to get content, and for him, it will be work, where for me, it was just a fun thing for us. Maybe this doesn't make a difference, but that's just how I see it in my head. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "So, he is in an MLM, and he admitted that his wanting to go out with you is to support his cultish business, rather than because he values the time? That hurts. I get it, I'm sorry. I do want to say that these companies and opportunities and MLMs are very scripted, high pressure, and designed to make people think that if they fail, they are at fault, despite the actual setup being a massive reason for the failure. They literally borrow cult tactics in order to prey on people, and I think you should talk about your feelings, but I think you should tread lightly, because the whole system is designed for him to be defensive if you bring up reason. It's part of the gig. Lots of hugs, and I'm sorry." And then user 2 commented and said, "How about you tell him how you feel and that a date is a date and reels are for work? If he wants to go on dates just to get views, those can be only 1 on 5 dates, if you're comfortable with even that. Communicate." Update. So, first of all, thank you to the vast majority of you who were logical and kind, and screw the people who immediately jumped to bashing women. In 2024, really? Anyway, here's what I ended up doing. Many of the comments said that the best thing to do was probably just take the win and find the good in my situation. But if it's really bothering me, to bring it up to John. And I honestly didn't want to. But I didn't want to be upset on every date either. So I decided to give it a trial run and see how I felt afterwards. I waited 2 weeks to make a decision and chose to go ahead and mention it to him. And for those of you who think I'm some dramatic witch whose husband could never make enough money to make her happy, I told him I was sure how I felt wasn't how he intended to come across, but then explained what I had been thinking. Sure enough, as many of you said, he was just killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And I told him I was totally fine with creating content on our dates, but I just didn't want to feel like that was the reason why we were on a date. He said that he understood and would be careful about it, and that if I was bothered or wanted to have a no-content date, to just let him know. So, that's the good part. The next part was a little tougher. Per the advice of a couple of you with either digital marketing or MLM experience, I had the tough pyramid scheme talk. I told him before, during, and after this conversation that no matter what he chooses to do, I will support him and help him, but I also explained to him a few things. How the marketing was misleading, how most people lose money instead of making it, how they will try to keep trying to get him to spend more money to make it work, etc. I also suggested that he track his hours of learning, content creating, and posting so that even if he does start making sales, he can decide if the time is worth the payout. I probably mentioned other things as well, but I don't remember what if so. I have always been very anti-MLM and like to think I know a lot about it, so I just tried to give him all the basic info in a kind way. After all that, I told him if he wanted to keep trying, I was for it as long as he doesn't invest any more money before he makes some money. I also told him how I was so proud of all the work he put into his side hustle so far, and how I loved that he was excited about it, how he's been getting up early to work out because of it. He will record parts of his run, stretches, etc., but actually does a full workout or run, and I told him I love how it's energized him. Understandably, he was a little sad and quiet, but he understood everything and wasn't mad at all. This was all last night, and he was totally back to normal before bed, and he's continued posting today. So I guess it didn't hurt his feelings or discourage him like I thought it might. That's the whole reason I waited so long, but I guess it would have been fine all along. I'm looking forward to our weekly dates and to the fact that we will be able to look back and remember them all, since we will have videos from each one. Again, grateful for all of your kind words, and I'm happy to answer comments or questions. Just be nice, for goodness sake. Story number 7. Am I the a-hole for telling our family and friends that my best friend has herpes because she outed me as a lesbian? I, 25F, and my best friend Emma, F26, have been friends since elementary school, and I honestly thought of her as a sister. We will tell each other everything. We went to the same college, and even though we have 2 different jobs, we work in the same area. Emma was my rock for years as I battled self-hate and depression due to growing up in a small conservative town as not only a person of color, but a closeted lesbian. Emma did not know I was a lesbian, just knew that I was unhappy, as well as never staying long in relationships, self-isolation, and I later developed anorexia. Emma was the one who suggested we go to an out-of-state college, and later suggested we move out of state too. I've gotten much better since then, and for that, I genuinely thank her. Though, about 2 years ago, Emma contracted herpes from some guy she slept with, and it has been very hard for her to land a boyfriend since then, and it's made her very lonely. She hasn't told her family or friends about it because she doesn't want to be seen as gross. Due to this, I haven't really put myself in the dating field, and have put off coming out. Though about 6 months ago, I met this girl at a craft store. Long curly hair, dressed in all black with big eyeliner and ruby lipstick. I couldn't stop staring at her, and I admit when she smiled at me, I kind of followed her around the store. I know, creepy. And I eventually worked up the courage to just ask for her number, and she gave it to me. I was so excited, and I started texting her that night, and since then, we've been hanging out a ton, and I think she likes me back. I was going to ask her out, but since I live with Emma, I decided I should come out since I will be bringing her around if the girl says yes. So, after work, I sat her down and told her I was a lesbian. I said all the anguish I went through growing up was because of my self-hate. How I wish I could have told her earlier, but I never found the right time. But now that I was in love with someone, I felt like I should tell her that she was the one person I trusted with this information. She just stared at me shocked for a few seconds, and then her face turned from shock to disgust. She jumped back and accused me of being a pervert and how I was gross for being around her so much, knowing I was gay, even mentioning she's gotten changed around me and I'm no better than some creepy man. I tried to explain I had no romantic feelings for her and I honestly had a crush on someone else. She wouldn't buy it and locked herself in her room. Later, my phone started ringing off the hook, and to my surprise, it was tons of messages from my family and our friend group either calling me homophobic slurs or asking if it was true that I liked Emma. My mother even called to scream at me for a few times, and apparently, I'm disowned. I started banging on the door and told her why the hell she outed me to everyone, and she started calling me a pervert again. So I was like, okay, fine. You want to play? Fine. And I had a picture of her diagnosis and sent it to her parents and our friend group. Then, according to the only friend who didn't crap on me, people are talking more about Emma than me because she still shares stuff, even though she has herpes. Now they are grossed out and are accusing her of trying to infect them with her diseases, along with some S-shaming. Now I'm looking for a new apartment, and I'm still planning to ask the girl out this week. But I was told by Emma's parents that I ruined her reputation and labeled their daughter as a dirty hoe. I feel bad, but I felt like she deserved it. Though I know that a disease and sexuality are 2 different things, so I'm wondering if I was really wrong to do that. Edit number 1. Since some have asked, I will ask her out tomorrow. I made reservations at this nice Thai place that she's been wanting to try. Then I'm going to take her to the boardwalk and ask her out there, as to not put her on the spot in front of a ton of people. See y'all then, and I hope it goes well. Edit number 2. A few hours later. I'm about to go pick up Ruby, and a commenter has been calling my crush Ruby, and I think that's pretty cute, so that's what I'm going to be referring to her as. Anyway, for some context, since it was asked, Emma is staying with a family friend who lives around here because her parents don't want us fighting. My lease is up soon, and I've hopefully locked down something by then. At least, I'll be able to be alone now. Anyway, wish me luck. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Everyone sucks here, but you less than others. Emma is the a-hole for outing you, and Emma's family are a-holes for saying contracting herpes makes her a dirty hoe. You retaliated against Emma in a way that you knew would hurt her, which is perfectly understandable, but still an a-hole move. She blew up your life though, and that's not fair at all. I know you'll be okay, and hearing slurs from your family and friends is terrible, and I'm sorry that happened, but they've revealed themselves as the a-holes that they are." Honestly, it was a pretty surreal experience. I thought maybe they'd be mad, but completely disowning me? I'm happy I came out after my parents paid for my college because just wow. Honestly, I feel like I stooped down to her level by doing so though, and it kinda made me feel like I was deserving of the hate, and that I didn't deserve to be able to come out. Though, I'm going to try to push through these thoughts and have a successful relationship. Thank you so much for your kind words. Then OP replied to a downvoted commenter, which was making homophobic comments, and said, I didn't see her romantically, and I was in the closet. There literally was no reason for me to be weird about it. I stated that she was essentially my sister. I'd never think of her that way. Just because I'm gay doesn't mean I'm going to be attracted to every woman. Plus, lesbians still use locker rooms with straight women, and legit nothing happens. You make no sense. Also, I didn't deliberately get into nothing. My parents were harassing me about not dating boys. So when a boy asked me out, I just said yes, but broke up with them because I didn't feel like leading them on. It's not about keeping appearances, it was about safety. The things that were said to me, the threats I got, you can't even imagine. You have no idea what it's like to be forced into a role and have no way of getting out. I only came out to her because I felt safe. Instead, she put me in an unsafe situation, put all of my business on the table with added lies. Also, I came to her saying I was in love with another woman. What told her that I was into her? Nothing. She just made it up. Then user 2 commented and said, "Not the a-hole. I find it very interesting that her first reaction was disgust about you possibly being attracted to her, which is so typically ignorant. She even told your friends that you're into her. Like, how narcissistic is that? Newsflash, lesbians aren't attracted to every woman they see, and bisexuals aren't attracted to everything." Yeah, honestly, that's what surprised me the most. Like the fact that she assumed I was crushing on her. I've never acted in that manner towards her. I felt like a lot of the flack I'm getting from my family and friends is because she spinned some weird story to actually make me look like a creep. My friend who is still talking to me told me she said that she's describing me as some locker room peeping Tom. This doesn't help that I was an athlete in high school, so I had to be in the locker room with other women. I can only imagine what's being said about me. Then user 3 commented and said, "Not the a-hole, but softly, basically because you did the right thing for the wrong reasons. Sure, outing someone's disease and health issues or whatever, like that is generally a dick move. And granted, I do have a soft spot for petty revenge and consequences, but she still shares stuff with people." Yeah, I kept trying to get her to stop sharing stuff with people, but she said she's on the medication, so it's okay. I don't care though. I keep all of my cups and bowls in my room and my toothbrush. Not that I didn't trust her, but it only takes one mess up and she wasn't taking anything seriously. Then user 4 said, "OP, what was Emma's reaction to being outed as sexually active with an STI?" Well, she called me the big ol' B word, amongst other things. She also said she was glad she's had herpes because I probably wouldn't have tried to R-word her. Genuinely insane. She's staying at a relative's house who lives around here until our lease runs out. Then user 5 said, "Everyone sucks here. Like the above poster said, you would have eventually come out. Seriously, you would have. She just got you there faster. It was effed up, but it would have happened.
Her medical diagnosis was her business. In some places, you can get in trouble for what you did. You should have picked something else if you needed a tit for tat.
Okay, what other secret was I going to pick? She literally had people wanting to end my life before I sent out that she has herpes. They still want to end my life, but they are focusing more on her sharing things even though that she knows she has it. You're mentioning people who don't know they have herpes and still share, but she knows she has herpes and is still sharing stuff. Also, I know how common herpes is. That's why I didn't give an F when she told me that she had it. I just got annoyed when she had active infections and tried sharing drinks with me. That's why she went on the meds, because she had both general and oral and they were constant. Other than that, I didn't care. Though the community I live in is super religious and judgy, so all they hear is herpes. So since they are getting violent with me, they can be disgusted with her. They aren't going to hurt her over it, but they will hurt me, which is why I will never be able to see my family or friends again. Also, there is no legal trouble I can get into in my state for doing that because I didn't tell her job. I'm pretty sure she can get into more trouble for harassing me, yelling slurs, and putting me in a potentially fatal situation. Inciting violence on a gay person kinda sounds like a hate crime, I won't lie. Also, saying I was going to eventually come out is screwed up. Like, this isn't something you just do. Like, I can be hurt over coming out. I was supposed to be able to weigh the risk and benefits, but she took that away from me because of how dangerous it is. Some people never come out and stay in the closet their whole life. Then the next user commented and said,
OP telling also helped reduce the negative reactions to the private information that Emma revealed. OP's mom disowned OP for this. I'd say if Emma started the fire, OP can use her to reduce it.
That is exactly what happened. A good chunk of people who were threatening to end my life and show up at my apartment are now upset with Emma. Especially from what I hear, her brother and sister-in-law are the most mad because she had been kissing up on their baby like last year. She had been on the medication and no active infections, and it wasn't on the mouth, so the baby is fine, but they don't understand how herpes work. Honestly, my town's ignorance to everything is really shooting her in the foot right now. Then some users commented and said that Emma could still be shedding the virus and it could have killed the baby, to which OP said, "Oh damn, I thought it was just newborns that it killed. The baby was 7 months at the time. The baby doesn't seem to have contracted it luckily, but damn. Yeah, then they aren't overreacting, especially if she could have potentially killed their baby. Though to be honest, I just think they didn't want their kid to seem dirty because most of their comments consisted of them saying that she tried to spread her STDs to a child." And finally, one user commented and said,
You're in love? Oh, please, you're infatuated. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're not in love. You don't even know this chick.
I mean, 6 months is a decent amount of time, but fair. She's just the first crush I've ever been able to pursue in, ever. So, update. So, as I stated in my last post, Emma is now staying with a relative in our area until our lease ends. The actual update on this is this morning, Emma's parents were at my door. They flew out because Emma is refusing to step back into our apartment. So I let them come inside because I wasn't about to hold Emma's stuff hostage, but I did something stupid. See, they didn't really want to speak to me, which was fine, but I decided to just wait in my room until they left. Me and Emma have an emergency fund that had about 5K in it. I put in roughly 2.7K, and they took it, the entire thing. Once I noticed, I called them to give me back my money because not all of it is hers, and they told me that I earn more than Emma, and this was compensation for ruining her reputation. I was like, so it's okay that she tried to screw me over first? And their response was, "Emma did not choose this disease, you chose yours." And I didn't even respond, and I just hung up because honestly, I don't even care. They didn't take anything else other than the money, and I genuinely don't want to see them anymore. Emma also has been cut off from her siblings because they have kids, and she was kissing the babies without letting the parents know of her diagnosis. She also actually was not taking proper precautions during active outbreaks. So yeah. So now none of her siblings want her around them because they feel betrayed. Though on a lighter note, me and Ruby are officially dating. A commenter kept referring to her as Ruby, and honestly, I think that matches. We went out to a fancy Thai spot, watched a movie, and then I took her to the water at the edge of the city. I had some stupid playlist set up, and I was trying to tone it down, but I couldn't. I was too excited. And I told her how beautiful I thought she was, how I enjoyed spending time with her, and if she was okay with it, if I could take her out on a date sometime. I had a whole speech prepared, but one of the comments told me I should be simple to not scare her. And she laughed at me and she said, "This was the first date." So that was a yes. I dropped her off at her house, and she gave me a kiss before she left.
honest, and I'm so happy. I've never kissed a girl before. So yeah, I actually give zero craps about the money because I just want them out, and I can start my new life. Anyway, that was all, and thanks a lot for the advice and support. And finally, in the comments section, one user said, "To be honest, I'm pissed by the fact that they stole your money. Regardless, I guess this was a good ending after all. Good for you, OP." Oh, I'll recover. I have my own separate savings, but this honestly was just rubbing salt in the wound. Now, I know we're doing the longer videos and stuff, but if you remember the first story, it was about the guy essentially revealing the open relationship stuff about his ex to her parents. And everyone was like, yeah, you might have went a bit too far, but we understand why. And I was kind of in the middle. I understood why he did it, but I thought he went a bit too far. And I kind of have that reservation here. Like, what Emma did was worse. But also, I think, like some people said, like, OP, what you did was also, like, in terms of what the subreddit is going after, an a-hole move. But I don't think anyone was, like, hating on OP. Anyone who wasn't homophobic, at least. But I think you can be labeled as the a-hole in this instance and not be the bad guy, if that makes sense. But I again, it's black and white. You know, it's an a-hole move, but I understand why she did it. I'm not going to hold it against her, really. And also, the kind of danger that she might have sharing her things, I feel like people need to know that. People didn't need to know that OP was a lesbian. People need to know that Emma has herpes and could potentially spread it and could potentially kill people. If she was taking precautions and then didn't share it, that's fine. But she wasn't taking precautions, so people should probably deserve to know that, especially when babies are involved. Anyway, what do you guys think? Next story. Story number 8. Am I the a-hole for wanting to use the hall pass my wife gave me 5 years ago when she cheated on me? My wife, 35F, and I, 35M, have been married for 10 years. We have 2 children, 9F, 7M. 5 years ago, I found out that my wife had an affair. I felt crushed and numb because I loved my wife a lot. Her affair partner told me about it when my wife called it off, and the affair lasted 1 month, and my wife had called it off because she felt really guilty about it. When I confronted my wife about it, she was very remorseful and didn't deny anything. She said she'd do anything, following any reconciliation steps I asked, and just begged to not break up our family. I asked her why she cheated, and she gave no excuses, and she just said it was for the thrill. My first reaction was to divorce, but after sitting on it for a week, I decided to just stick it out for our family. And because I still loved my wife, she was very thankful, and she even told me I had a hall pass that I could use whenever I wanted. Over the next year or so, my wife followed the reconciliation steps, which included therapy, getting sober, quitting her job, and a bunch of other things. I had forgiven my wife, but I could never forget it. I would occasionally just replay in my mind my wife cheating on me, and that always hurt a lot. Fast forward to today, and my family is doing great. However, I have struck up a friendship with Melissa, 32F, who I met at a bookstore. We had common interests in books for existentialism, metaphysics, and similar books. I don't know how, but when we met, we just clicked. We initially met every week at the bookstore to just discuss books and life, but we started talking more about our personal life, and we then started going on for coffee dates and brunches. One more thing we had in common was that Melissa too was married to her husband, who had cheated on her many years ago. It's been almost a year since I met her, and Melissa has made it up front that she has very strong feelings for me, and that she's never had those feelings for anyone else ever in her life. I too have a lot of feelings for her, but I feel guilty about it, so I haven't told her about them yet. And I haven't crossed any physical boundaries, and I don't intend to. We only hug and hold hands, but I do want to explore more of an emotional connection with her, because I've never felt like this ever. Then I remembered that my wife gave me a hall pass 5 years ago when she cheated on me. So, would I be the a-hole to use that hall pass to explore the emotional connection I have with Melissa? Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "It'll end your marriage, but yeah, you should probably go tell your wife you want to use your hall pass, because the marriage has obviously never recovered and you've obviously found someone who is a better match for you. Even better, just go tell your wife you want a divorce, and that no matter how hard you tried, you could never truly get fully past the cheating. That it's best if you separate so you can both find a relationship that isn't broken. All of that would be the truth. Then you can go to Melissa and say, I've begun divorce proceedings with my wife. If you want to explore what we have together, I would want to do that, but only if you divorce your husband. We can ensure that neither of us are cheaters, and we owe it to ourselves to make that the case. Even if you don't divorce, I'm still divorcing my wife, but I won't be waiting around. I've wasted too much time already. I hope you'll find the courage to take a leap of faith with me, understanding that there's no guarantee it will work out. I truly believe that we have a special connection, something I haven't ever felt with someone else in my life, and I would be very sad to lose it.
Then user 3 commented and said,
A hall pass is for a single night stand with someone you're attracted to, but that's it. A hall pass is not to deepen an emotional connection you have with someone by adding sex into the mix. I would just tell your wife you want a divorce because chances are your wife will ask you for one when you tell her about Melissa. She's definitely going to find out that this is someone you're already in love with. Just be honest and say that you never really forgave or forgot the affair and that you want a divorce. Because chances are if you do use your hall pass with Melissa, you'll probably want to end things with your wife, since you and Melissa already have feelings for each other. She doesn't seem like someone you just want to use for sex and never see again. You know, like how hall passes usually work. And honestly, it's clear to see that you never really got over your wife's affair, or you wouldn't be holding on to this idea being able to cash in a hall pass 5 years later. Not that you or anyone else needs to get over an affair by any means, I just mean that you didn't truly forgive her or you wouldn't feel the need to do the same to her. Even if she said you could, because deep down I'm sure she didn't really mean that, no one is truly okay with giving their partner a pass to sleep with whoever they want.
And finally, user 3 commented and said,
Dude, you may not be having a physical affair in your eyes with Melissa, but you are already cheating on your wife by having an emotional affair. I think you are cheating holding hands and hugging her, because you aren't doing that as friends, but as intimate contact. It's obvious you haven't forgiven your wife, and at this point, the kindest thing is divorce and let you both live your own lives.
Update. Thank you everyone for the advice. I've decided to not use the hall pass as I don't really feel too great about it, and it wouldn't be fair to my wife. I want to clarify what I meant by using the hall pass. I had no intentions of proceeding with any sexual activity, but instead deepening my emotional connection with Melissa, and may have at worst included kissing her, which she tried to kiss me once, but I rejected it because I felt guilty about it. I texted Melissa and let her know, and while she was disappointed, she asked if we could still remain friends like we are now, and I told her sure, and she was very happy about it. I do like hanging out with Melissa a lot, and talking about life. I also get flutters and excited energy around her, and I like that a lot. Then in the comments section, one user said,
So, you have decided to have an affair.
And finally, user 2 commented and said,
You can't remain friends like you are now. Wow.
Oh, this poor lost soul, this man. He's not the a-hole or anything, but he is being a little foolish, and I feel like he's having conflicting emotions and may not realize what he's doing. And I've never heard of a hall pass as deepening your emotional connection with someone, which, let's be honest, just leads to sex or you wanting to really have sex with that person. And at the very minimum, he's having, or at least has had, an emotional affair. And I think, I don't know, the guy's conflicted. I'm not going to roast him or anything, but it seems like there's some internal conflict, or at least some internal confusion, whether that be consciously or subconsciously, without trying to, psychoanalyze or like that. But, you know what, that's his mess. Anyway, next story. Story number 9. I kept a diary to track my wife's affection towards me, and it is as bad as I tell her it is. I, 34M, and my wife, 43F, have been together for 16 years and married for 7. We have a 4-year-old daughter. After the first few years where my wife was very kind, present, loving, and affectionate, things have changed a lot. I rarely receive kisses from her, let alone hugs or kind words. She doesn't ask how I am in the morning, let alone say good morning or good night, and I am tired of this. I have told her in every possible way that as a man, I need these expressions of love to feel loved. Her excuse is that she is too tired because of the child. But these things were happening even before our daughter was born. Or that everything depends on my behavior towards her. Every time. It always depends only on me. When we argue about this, she says I'm exaggerating. I'm tired of arguing about this for a year, and I've recorded in a diary all of her expressions of love over the past month. I know it may seem exaggerated, but believe me, I am exhausted and don't know how else to show her the lack of love I feel from her. What I don't understand is that sexually, things are fine, and we have sex 2 to 3 times a week, sometimes initiated by her. But I am fed up. I don't feel as loved as I would like, and I have lived like this for many years, and now I can't take it anymore. Please don't get mad at me. Everyone needs their own time to understand certain things, and I realized this over the past year. I am a romantic, passionate, and attentive man. Normally, I can give 5 to 6 hugs a day, kisses, compliments, surprises, and I can talk about anything and discuss things in different ways. However, being treated like like this makes me shut down and withdraw because of the lack of reciprocation, and I am seriously thinking of divorcing because I don't feel heard or understood. I don't see a person who understands and takes action to change the situation." Then in the comment section, OP elaborated on breaking down chores and who does what and said, "I'm doing 50-50, working, watching the kid, trash, laundry, blah blah blah. The fact is that even before the kid, she behaved like this. I don't want my wife to be my mommy, and I'm fully capable of living alone and doing everything, because I already had." Then in the comment section, one user said, "OP, you mentioned in your post that everything depends on your behavior towards her. Can you elaborate on this one?" Basically, we're running in this circle until some months ago. I don't receive what I ask, affection, and I'm treated poorly, so after a long time of patiently waiting for change, I stonewall or get offended, and we have a fight because of this. She says she has had enough of the stonewalling and me being offended because it hurts her, and then we end the fight with me being the one that swallows it, and then I try to let it go. And I try to tell her what is causing this and to take action. Time passes, and we are again at the start. Some months ago, I read about stonewalling and how bad it is, so I ended it, but still, it's really hard for me to get through this lack of affection. The problem is that I've been also treated very bad during the fight. Yelled at, called names, divorce threatening by her side. I'm hurt on so many levels. And then user 2 commented and said, "What are you doing to love her back? I feel like the diary can backfire because it focuses your emotions on her actions rather than on what you can control. The diary is about facts, not my emotions. If I receive no hugs for 5 days in a row, it's no hugs for 5 days in a row. I tell her I love her. I tell her how beautiful she is. I joke with her. I buy her preferred premium soda when I do groceries. I ask her how she feels when she's ill, and I take care of her. But do I feel reciprocated? Nah." Then OP elaborated more in the comments section and said, "This. I feel felt with this comment. Even if we have a difficult 4-year-old child, I mean, we have a lot of relaxed moments where I do kiss her, hug her for some seconds, tell her something nice. It is impossible that she's so stressed that she can't even hold my hand for some seconds. I think that the issue with her is that she comes from a family where the father was really abusive, hitting, calling names, etc., and in constant fights with the mother, cheating. And I think that she received love from her mother, but she didn't get any from her father, and that's the result. But from the other side, I don't understand how she could give me what I needed the first half years of the relationship, just because it was new? I also asked her how her 2 previous relationships were with those partners, if they complained about these things. But she says they didn't, and that she was giving them hugs, etc. But in that case, they were a bit older than her. Then OP provided more information and said, "Thanks, but why would a nice 27-year-old woman pursue an 18-year-old, me, and manipulate him and get him to commit? What are your hypotheses? Thanks." And again, if you're 27, young and beautiful, won't you be able to do the same to same-age men like you are older? They also already have everything in their life. Then one user commented and said, "No, because older men have more experience too and are harder to manipulate. Maybe they didn't want her for a reason? Maybe they saw she didn't have enough to offer for a long-term relationship? I'm just guessing. Only you know the truth." So, you think they already understood her lack of affection and attention for a long-term relationship? The issues I'm having right now? I always thought that she doesn't have respect for me because also of the age gap, so she doesn't treat me well. Then another user replied and said, "When you think back to getting married, did she lack affection the majority of the marriage? If so, then yeah, I guess the other men probably noticed early on and didn't want to put up with it. And if you feel she doesn't respect you, then that is a whole other problem. Do you feel that she looks down on you?" Yup, she did. I don't know how they were able to spot this. Then OP responds to multiple comments regarding the age gap with him being 18 and her being 27 at the time and said, "She was not pursuing me. We just met in chat back in the old days. We talked, and then the interest was born. She was very skeptical to consider me seriously because of the age, but after some time she did. We met, we engaged. Could you please elaborate on what you mean that you feel like the age gap could play a huge part? What is your point of view? I was way more mature at my age because of my hard life before 18. So I wasn't an immature 18-year-old freshman. I get your point, but you're missing some info. Maybe I was more mature and she was less mature? But still, I don't get why she had 2 relationships with guys who were years older than her. So, do you think they already understood her lack of affection and attention for a long-term relationship? The issues I'm having right now? I always thought she doesn't have respect for me because also of the age gap, so she doesn't treat me well." Then OP elaborated on if he shows affection to his wife and said, "Yes. 2 months ago, I even questioned myself to the point where I treated her like a princess for 2 weeks straight, not getting offended, telling her constantly how I love her, how sexy she is, hugging, kissing a lot of the times with heart. But what did I receive in return? Just 2 compliments and 1 I love you in 2 weeks. After this, I felt so bad and not reciprocated that I decided to not do this test, if you want to call it that way, anymore. It hurt too much. Update number 1. These days, after publishing the post, I've spent a lot of time reading online, watching reels, watching YouTube videos to better understand my situation. And thanks to one of these, I discovered the issue of avoidant attachment style. I was stunned by how closely my wife fit the description, and I set out to thoroughly study the case. I also identified other things I should do in my relationship, which is set clear boundaries, demand that my requests are understood, respected, and fulfilled, stand firm in my position, and if necessary, make it clear that I'm willing to leave. I showed the Excel sheet to my wife the next day, and her first response was, "But yesterday we cuddled." And I told her, "Look at the facts over the past month. There are things you never do, and the few things you do are a result of my complaints or arguments. They're not debatable. I'm sorry." Then I told her what I discovered and how she fits into the case. And I read her the main characteristics of these people and the types of traumas they have gone through in their lives. I explained to her, knowing her personal family story, that this was mainly thanks to the abuse that she received when she was a kid from her parents. And my wife was stunned and listened and then asked me, "So what should I do to solve this?" And my answer was, I don't know, because I really don't know. The thing I do know and what I told her is that these problems were generated in her childhood and need to be addressed now. I'm now informing myself about the options available to solve or at least alleviate these issues. Sadly, we have difficult schedules, so a therapist is now off the table. During the day, I cried a lot because finally, after 16 years, I understood why we had these problems. A strong sadness came over me because I recalled all the situations where I was treated badly, with indifference, and did not receive the affection I wanted. I also remembered all the lies and manipulations used over time to cover up her shortcomings. I think the first step is to focus on myself and solve my own problems, since I developed an anxious attachment style. I will probably use an online course and books to do this, since I have very little time between my daughter and work, and if it works, I will propose it to my wife, who is now telling me, "I understand, don't worry. Now that I know what I need to give you, I can do it without courses or anything." But I have serious doubts about this statement, and I will continue to track what happens in my diary to have objective data. I've already told her that if unfortunately this situation doesn't resolve, I will proceed with divorce, and when I do, if forced, I won't go back. That will be the end, and I will let you all know what happens. Personally, I want to see how things go next week. I am sure, unless I am mistaken, that my wife will only last 3 days. In any case, I will continue on my path to heal and be ready for a new relationship when the time comes. Stay tuned. And if anyone has any experience with a spouse healing from an avoidant attachment style, please let me know. Update number 2. So, as expected, my wife lasted less than 3 days. Actually, just 1, in terms of giving kisses, hugs, cuddling, but it doesn't matter. I found all the things I need to fix in me, so I'm starting the journey alone in order to grow and be able, without hesitation, to proceed with a divorce and to not go back to her. I'm also seeing a lawyer to have everything checked out before I proceed in the future. The interesting thing is that I listed all of my insecurities and issues related to the trauma that I experienced in my childhood, and I see a lot of things that I need to work on about myself and to fix inside of me. I asked out of curiosity to my wife what are the top 3 things she thinks should be fixed with me, expecting them to be at least 10 items, but she just told me that defensiveness and stonewalling are the only 2 things, and that without them, I would be a perfect husband. I was stunned and confused the whole day, and I also asked her if removing these 2 things would result in her loving me more, but she told me no, because she already loves me the way I am, and this is just my cross. So it seems she's happy with the marriage while I'm not. I want more from a relationship, at least the basic caring of a wife. I don't think I'll give you any other update because I'll be focused improving things in myself, but once the time comes for me to proceed with the divorce, I'll let you know what happens. Stay tuned. Then in the comments section, OP elaborates on how he is moving forward and working on himself and said, "Thank you for sharing your story. While I'm trying to start my healing process, I'm literally crying every day preparing myself for divorce. The probability of her changing is less than 1%. And the issues we have are deeply rooted in the past. I tried everything to get her attention. I gave her all the love I could possibly give. I tried so many times to accommodate to her way of being, but I have had enough. I'm heartbroken. My dear wife, my dear lovely wife, my first woman in my life. I did everything I could to love her with all my heart and be recognized for this, loved for this. Every small bit for attention is lost in the dark. I'm really heartbroken, and I'm just preparing myself for the divorce, trying to cry out all the tears before I finally tell her I'm leaving. It's one of the most difficult things to do in my life, and believe me, I did crazy and difficult things in the past. This one is probably going to kill me, but I need to proceed. I can't live like that any longer, and I don't want my child to see this and become like this, because the chances for her to find a good partner will lower considerably. Then Opie elaborated on if he tried to connect with his wife over the years and said, "Yes, I tried that for a couple of years, also during COVID, but man, it was hell. Me just working, playing video games till the morning, sometimes watching a movie with her while she always fell asleep, no real connection. Just me doing something and she on her phone." I remember one time a friend of ours said that he was about to disconnect from the game because he was requested by his girlfriend that wanted to stay with him and watch something together. I tried this, but it feels to me like I'm always missing something. I don't have that deep connection. I'm alone and I feel alone. Then we have arguments. I have no love blank filled to be able to face that. You know, sort of, okay, you're mean to me, but 3 hours ago you were kissing me, telling me I love you. I only have negative feelings. Also, this way of being, it's not me. I want to feel wanted. I want to be cuddled. I need love. If I'm feeling bad, I want someone being able to hug me and tell me, "Sweetheart, don't worry, everything's going to be all right." She never does this. Instead, she says things like, "Level up and life is hard, blah, blah, blah." I know that, and I know it's her traumas, and I don't have any resentment towards her. I just can't keep up with this. Also, I'm somebody who loves to give love, and stopping me from doing this is devastating. I also have other issues like she almost never initiates any discussion, doesn't allocate time for me. It's always me chasing her, and I have had enough of it. Sex can't be our only way of connection. She's always with me, but her mind is somewhere else. I tried to enter into her mind, but no luck after 16 years. It's been a full year that I'm talking about this issue with my wife, and she frequently denied it by saying things like, "It's not true," or "Tomorrow I'll show you," or "This very morning I'll give you a kiss, I'm affectionate," and then she'll say things like, "See, other couples, they don't engage anymore after all these years, blah, blah, blah." How would you feel, though, after one full year of sweet attempts to talk about an issue, and frequently she would say that her lack of affection is due to me doing XYZ. I created the spreadsheet to have evidence of an issue, and the evidence shows that the affection I receive is only when I have a fight with her or I complain the day before. One day of change followed by weeks of nothing. It bothered her and she was angry, sure, and I get the frustration of seeing something like that, but does she get my 1 year frustration? And I'm not threatening divorce over a spreadsheet, I'm threatening over 1 year of trying to talk and solve the issue. I could have just said I'm done, bye-bye 1 year ago, and I rather fought with everything that came to my mind. Yeah, so I created a spreadsheet after months and months of no affection, so you could create a spreadsheet with 0 in every cell for 90 days. You know what you're talking about, and surely you don't know what it feels like to receive no affection in a marriage for so long. Do I have personal issues and traumas? Yes, sir, and I'm going to address them. Does my wife have issues and traumas? Yes, sir, but is she going to do something about it? Nope. So, hence the divorce, so that she can provide her carelessness to whoever she wants to. So, where do you start with this one? I kind of felt like something was off from the second we read the story when he gave off the ages and then how long they were together. I was like, oh, he was like 18. Like, I paused and did the math because math was my worst subject. And I was like, oh, he's 18. She was 27. And that had me slightly concerned. That kind of raised some alarms. And then he just kept talking about her, and then she lies and then doesn't change anything. And it's, you know, he wants human affection. She's not giving it. He understands why, trauma and stuff like that. And he mentioned a few other negative things. But quite simply, if you're not happy in the marriage, then leave. I feel like the guy in the previous story could have used that information. But anyway, good for OP for wanting to look inwards and, you know, reading those books and trying to change himself. Like he said, he doesn't have time for therapy, but this seems like a good way to get around that. And I'd like to imagine that he's a wise old monk now who has shaved his head and has realized that if you want to fly, you must cut off all that is weighing you down. Good for OP. Next story. Story number 10. My 23F boyfriend, 25M of 5 months, is convinced my dog has behavioral issues. I will try to keep this short, but I think it will end up longer than I expect. I live in a house with one roommate, 23F, who is also my best friend. Over the summer, two things happened. One of my family's two dogs became very ill, and my stepfather walked out on our family 2 days before my half-brother's, 16M, birthday. Needless to say, things got hectic and I moved back in with my family for a couple of months to help take care of the dog and try to provide some stability for my brother. The sick dog had to be put to sleep, which was really hard, and my mother also had to find a new place since she could not afford the old house on her salary alone. She finds the perfect house, but the landlord did not allow pets. My landlord does. However, and after clearing it with my roommate, I decided to bring Galahad, 7M, with me home. I've always loved Galahad, but since he's moved in, we're pretty inseparable. Nothing makes me smile like this little dog. My roommate adores him, and we often joke that he is our child. My friends love him too, and he is very cute and tends to charm everyone. Everyone except my boyfriend, it seems. My boyfriend was never very keen on Galahad. I guess cordial is the best word, if you can apply that to a relationship with a dog. I always assumed it was because he is a cat person. He has 2 cats at his place, and it never really bothered me until last weekend. I'm planning on going to a dog Halloween party hosted by the Humane Society. Roommate is going too, and we are dressing up as medieval maidens, and Galahad is going to be a knight. I was excitedly telling my boyfriend about this and showing him our costumes, when he freaks out. He said Galahad shouldn't be around other dogs or even strange humans because of his behavioral problems. I was surprised because Galahad gets along great with dogs and people and has never shown aggressive behavior. My boyfriend ranted for a while, but here's a condensed version. When Galahad wants attention and likes to be in a lap or petted, he will lick your foot or leg, almost always just once. I don't mind this, but I realize not everyone feels the same. When guests are over, I try to distract and redirect him from this, but I let my guest know it is okay to tell him no. When he hears no, he will not repeat the behavior. Then, when somebody he doesn't know that well enters the house, Galahad will bark a couple of times. This is not an aggressive bark, more like an attention bark. The only other times that he barks is when he needs to go outside or when he sees me grab the treat bag. Continuing, Galahad sleeps on my bed on a special blanket. My boyfriend does not like this, so when he is over for the night, I put Galahad in his crate in my room. One night, my boyfriend insisted that the crate be placed in another room. I complied, but Galahad hated this and cried for about 30 minutes until I brought him back into my room. He went to sleep normally then and slept quietly for the rest of the night. And finally, Galahad likes to be watched while he eats. This started when the other dog was put down, and I noticed Galahad lost a lot of weight and ate very little. I had to coax and encourage him to eat, which eventually turned into me sitting at the table next to his bowl with him for about 15 minutes while he eats. Then my boyfriend lists all these problems, including that I am too obsessed with the dog, and ending with he thinks I need to send Galahad back to live with my family. I explained why that is not an option. He said he didn't want to come to my house anymore while Galahad is still here. I asked him if that was an ultimatum, and he told me to take it how I wished. This week, our communication has been the bare minimum, and my boyfriend still seems very upset with me. My roommate is furious about it, and I just want to smooth things over. Should I take Galahad to a dog training class? I don't have the money for a personal dog trainer, and I think Galahad is just being a normal dachshund for the most part. Am I in the wrong? I'm so confused. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "These aren't behavior problems. He is still mourning the loss of his friend and your family members. Now, if he was running all over the place, peeing in corners, or jumping up on people and biting them, then maybe. I think your boyfriend is used to a cat's way of life. Minimal amount of attention needed and independent. Dogs are the opposite and need a lot of time and love. If he doesn't want to come over while the dog is there, that's his choice. But it should say a lot about his character when confronted with a problem. It's either his way or no way. No compromises. Does he not like dogs in general or just this dog?" That's the weird thing. I've seen him be quite friendly with other dogs, talking to them and petting them, never with my dog. He ignores him mostly. I've noticed that he has a pretty stubborn streak before, but I've never had an issue accommodating him. Then user 2 commented and said, "Maybe he thinks this dog is taking up too much of your time, so he gets less? I don't know really. It seems a bit odd it's just Galahad he has a problem with. Has he ever said he wouldn't live with a dog?" He once said to me that he didn't think his cats would like Galahad. The only other time we've talked about pets really is when he told me I was posting too many Galahad pictures on Instagram. I had just brought him home, so I was excited and kind of overdid it, I guess. Update number 1. I've been asked to update, so here it is. I want to thank everyone who took the time to respond. I got a couple of questions asking if I was minimizing Galahad's behavior, and I think I was. Mainly the barking thing. Galahad only barks a couple of times at people entering the house, but he is loud. It can be startling to people who aren't familiar with him. Also, the wanting to be watched while eating, I think I downplayed it because I managed to work it into my routine easily, and I have a lot of guilt over him dropping so much weight. This isn't normal behavior though, and it needs to be corrected. With that in mind, I decided Galahad should be enrolled in a dog training class, and hopefully I could address his other behaviors with a professional. I planned to tell this to my boyfriend on Halloween, and hopefully it would all work out. Well, it didn't. I texted my boyfriend Halloween morning that I wanted to come to his place and talk before or after the Humane Society Halloween party. He didn't respond, so me, my roommate, and Galahad got costumed up and went to the party. It was a blast, and I could tell Galahad enjoyed some canine company. On the way back to the house, boyfriend calls me and asks me to come over so we can talk. I tell him I have to drop off my roommate and Galahad first, then I would be right over. And he just hangs up. I get to his apartment and I can tell he's pissed. And he asks why I haven't gotten rid of Galahad. I tell him I'm not getting rid of my dog, and I'm about to take him to classes. My boyfriend says that's not good enough, so we fight for a while, neither of us would bend, and we ended up breaking up. I get back home and roommate can tell I've been crying. So we spend the night watching Bill and Ted, drinking wine, and calling my ex-boyfriend a medieval dickweed. I'm lucky to have such a great friend. Then in the comments section, one user said,
OP, I predict regret text messages from your ex in T-minus 7 days.
You might be right. I've always kind of folded to what he wanted before. I didn't have a problem accommodating him, and I think he's expecting me to back down, but I have someone else I have to think about now, you know? Then user 2 commented and said,
OP, if he texts you, reply with pictures of the dog.
I'll caption it, the most important guy in my life. Update number 2. I'm pretty sure this is going to be my last update on this subject, unless something crazy happens, and thanks for all the support on my previous posts. So, last Saturday, I got a surprise visit from my ex. I asked my roommate to watch Galahad in another room while I spoke to him, and he actually showed up with a box of dog treats. They were for large dogs, so they were way too big for Galahad, but it was a really sweet gesture, and we chit-chat about various things for a couple of minutes, and then my ex apologizes and says he misses me and that he wants me back. As much as I've played tough in my posts, I really love this guy, and breaking up has been hard. We started to talk about how we could make it work, and he proposed that we could hang out at his apartment, and if he came over to my house, Galahad would be put in a different room than us. I told him I needed time to think, and that I wasn't ready to jump back into official status just yet. And then his demeanor completely changed. He got quiet for a second, and then he said, "What the F?" And his voice got angry. Not sure if I would say raised, and then he went on about how I should just accept his apology, that he was doing everything to make this relationship work, and I was intentionally sabotaging it. I could feel tears welling up, and then he said to me, "And now you're gonna effing cry?" And then my roommate walked into the room. It's a living room/kitchen, and she went to get something from the fridge. My ex took this as his cue, I guess, and got up and left without saying anything else to me. So, to pull a Taylor Swift, we are never, ever, ever getting back together. And since then, I've blocked him on all social media except Instagram, where I've been posting pictures of Galahad. It's petty, but it makes me feel better. In other news, I've been training Galahad to eat by himself. Mixed success so far, but slow and steady wins the race. So, I don't want to say that the ex-boyfriend was outright jealous of the dog, but I can certainly feel like maybe he felt as if he was competing with it, or he felt second place in his relationship because OP, in his eyes, might have been giving too much attention to the dog, so I can understand if that was his mindset, if that's how he felt. But what I don't approve of is the way he went about things. As one comment mentioned, take notice of how he problem solved here. Even though it's a smaller issue about a dog, noticed how it was my way or no compromise. That's telling because even though this is a smaller issue, like down the line when it comes to something bigger, he might have that same mindset of, well, I'm not looking to compromise, it's my way or nothing else. And then he shows up at the door and apologizes, and the facade lasts for 7 seconds. I guess the best part is that he revealed his true colors, and he almost ruined Halloween for OP. Bro, white girls love Halloween. You don't ruin Halloween for white girls. I'm gonna be real with you. I'm just saying, in my personal experience. And also, real quick, you might be wondering, how do you know she's white? She quoted Taylor Swift. Okay, she's white. I don't even want to call it a bold assumption, but it's what my heart is telling me. Not my brain, my heart. Okay, listen to your heart. Next story. Story number 11. Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend I'm not getting his name tattooed on me? I get matching tattoos, but each other's names? I really can't do it. A tattoo is permanent, unless you want to pay more money to get it removed, so to me, it's permanent. Me and my boyfriend have been together for a year or so, and he asked me if we would get each other's names tattooed on each other, and I immediately said, yeah, no thank you. And he was like, why? What's wrong with getting each other's names? I'm sorry, but no. I told him how I refuse to put anyone's name on me if it isn't me or my twin sister, and only my twin sister, because she's the only person who's been in my life full years of living, or maybe my kid's name. And then he said stuff like, this could actually show our love towards one another. And I told him we can still love each other very much without having each other's names permanently on our skin. I just feel like it's a stretch, and you never know what could happen in the future. It's just a waste of money if we ended up breaking up. Then came him saying, my parents are still married and happy and they got each other's names tattooed. Like, yeah, I get that, but I'm not doing it. It's just too far. I respect anyone who chooses that path, but I can't do it. My boyfriend took it as I think that me and him will break up soon and that I don't love him like he loves me, but that isn't true. I just don't want something to be stuck on me when that person I thought I'd love forever turns out to be the one I no longer love. So, am I the a-hole, or are my reasons valid? Also, I'm 22 and he's 25. Update. Hey everybody, just wanted to say we are now not together anymore. I broke up with him like 3 days ago. He was showing lots of signs of toxicity, which many warned me about. I'm sure he was talking to another woman, so yeah, had to call it quits. Now I'm single and living great.
By the way, if people get mad at that Taylor Swift joke, I'm going to tie myself to a tree. What will that accomplish? I don't know, but at least I won't be on the internet. Anyways, for this story, I'm with OP. If they were married, I could maybe see it. If they were together for 5 years, 3 years, I could see it, but it's 1 year. That just felt like a red flag for me, and like OP then went on to say, it seems like he was probably talking to another woman. So, I mean, not surprising. And then she also mentioned he showed a lot of signs of toxicity, so I wasn't surprised by that reveal. And even though he was the 25-year-old, it seems like he may still need to develop his frontal lobe a bit because OP was the mature one. I'm not hating on anybody who gets tattoos, but I'm not for it, and I really can't approve of it after 1 year into a relationship. You know what can happen. We've seen these stories. Anyway, next story. Story number 12. My fiance announces she is bisexual after a solo trip to a wedding. Betty, 27F, and I, 30M, got engaged in January after dating for a couple of years. Our plan was to get married next year when we had saved up enough money for the wedding. Shortly after getting engaged, we moved in together at the end of January. In May, Betty was a bridesmaid for one of her friends. I wasn't able to attend due to my job and the fact that it was a 5-day trip. Betty had a great time reconnecting with some of her old friends, but a couple of weeks after she got back, she became moody and withdrawn. I was relieved then when she made an appointment with a therapist since she hadn't opened up to me about what was troubling her. After about 5 or 6 sessions, she sat me down one Saturday morning so we could talk. Betty had been raised in a very conservative household and had to suppress her desires until she moved out to go to college. Even then, certain ideas she denied and refused to embrace. At the wedding, she was introduced to the wife of one of her girlfriends from college, and it triggered a lot of repressed desires over the days that they all hung out before the wedding. She told me she felt romantic and sexual attraction to women, as well as men, and realized she was bisexual. I told her I was happy she finally felt in sharing this with me, and it didn't change how I felt about her. It was a very emotional moment. She asked me how I felt about her exploring her sexuality now that it was out in the open. I said I was open to exploring it with her and possibly having a threesome with another woman to let her have that experience. But she wanted a one-on-one experience with another woman and felt that she couldn't do that with me present. I told her that sounded more like an affair and something I wasn't comfortable with. I asked her if she wanted to cancel the wedding and maybe separate for a while she figured out what she wanted to do. She was adamant that was not what she wanted, and she was still very much in love with me and still wanted to get married, but she felt like she had to explore these feelings she was embracing before we settled down together. I asked her if she had done anything inappropriate at the wedding and cheated on me, and I asked if she had someone in mind or had been talking to someone since she came back. She admitted to dancing with a girl at the reception, and they kissed at the end of the night, but nothing else happened. But she denied talking to anyone or pre-planning anything. She knows this was a lot to throw on my plate all at once, and she didn't expect an answer right away, and she just asked that I keep an open mind and keep talking about it. I couldn't promise anything, but I agreed to do some research and talk to a workmate that has an open marriage to see how they cope. I did warn her if I found out she lied or was doing anything behind my back, there would be no second chances.
and I would leave. My workmate has been super helpful and open about their relationship. My brother got me into a support group that has helped me come to terms with our relationship changes, and I'm burning my way through my second book and sat Betty down Thursday night to check in and talk about moving forward. I found us a couples therapist, and I gave her the book I had finished and told her we should postpone the wedding for 6 months and then decide if that's the path we are still on. I was on a roll when she stopped me and asked me if I was planning on dating other people. Like, that never occurred to her that I would be dating as well. She kind of shut down after that, barely giving one-word answers, and when I would ask her something, I think the longest sentence I got was, "I just don't know." And she's been like that for 24 hours now, like she's lost in a fog. I am just bracing myself for the inevitable flood of emotions. I would have thought she would be happy that I was considering opening our relationship. Edit. My brother came out as gay when I was 16, by the way, and my parents were very supportive, so I grew up in a very different household than my girlfriend. Update. Saturday night, her fog lifted and things got pretty heated. She said that the open relationship was my way of punishing her and being vindictive by dating other women. She was just asking for some grace to explore her feelings. I replied that she showed almost no remorse for cheating on me and instead expected an open-ended hall pass to do so again. I told her our friends had told me that she asked them not to say anything about what happened at the wedding, so I would probably never know the full truth and just had to accept it was worse than what she admitted to. I asked if she thought it was fair to have sex with other people while I waited by the door like some lovesick puppy who was expected to just wag his tail when she decided to come home and show me some attention, and it devolved after that, and some hurtful things were said by both of us, and I finally gave her 3 options if she wanted to move forward. 1. Monogamy. Postpone the wedding and go to couples counseling. No experimenting. When we get to a good place, then go ahead with the wedding with a prenup to protect me if she changes her mind and or cheats again. 2. Open relationship. We can both date who we want and she can figure out her sexuality on her own terms. In a year or so, we can see if the marriage still seems like a good option if we are still together. And 3, full separation. She moves out and we can each be free to our lives as we see fit. And if/when she decides she wants monogamy with me, and if I haven't moved on, then we can try option 1. But it would be a new beginning, not just picking up where we left off. She decided she needed some space to think things out and is going to stay with friends for a couple of days. I told her before she left that if she accidentally cheated while she was gone, to not come back except to pick up the rest of her things. This morning, I got a text from her that said, "I'm so sorry," and she didn't answer when I asked her what she meant, and my call went to voicemail. I'm not going to reach out to her again, and I will wait to let her contact me when she is ready. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
Looks like your partner has been a bit self-centered about this. Good idea to take your time regarding your engagement. The death of exclusivity, even as a hypothetical, can be pretty destabilizing for an established mono relationship. Keep talking. You seem to be handling this very well. Somewhat better than her, I think.
I tried to handle this respectfully, but it seems fair to her. It's an open pass for her, but not for me. I'm expected to support her while she has sex and possibly develops feelings for someone else, and I just smile and nod. And then she got upset when I had to remind her she was the one that cheated. I just finished printing out cards to send to everyone we sent the save the date notices to, advising them we are canceling the wedding. Not sure how I am going to respond when they start asking why. The cards I'm sending out just have "due to new circumstances" on them. And then User 2 commented and said,
If the person asking is part of the group who withheld information from you, consider telling them the truth, that your fiance cheated on you and her friends colluded to keep it from you. Consider telling that friend what you think of them for not having your back at such an important moment.
I had that conversation with the friend who confronted what Betty had told me. When I questioned him later, he said Betty had made them promise not to tell me on the trip back home. He and his wife and one of the other bridesmaids were the only ones that saw them kissing. He also told me who the other woman was, and she lives in a different state. Update. On Wednesday, Betty went to her previously scheduled appointment with her therapist and told her what happened between us. Not sure what all was said, but she called me on the way to her friend's house apologizing for some of the things she said and wanted to come home and talk things out. I told her to stay at her friend's house tonight and think about what she wanted, and she could come home Thursday and we could sit down and work things out. On Thursday, we met at the house and talked over dinner. We both apologized for getting heated and saying some unfair things to each other. After talking to her therapist and having several conversations with her best friend over the last few days, she has decided not to explore her bisexual urges. The idea of a truly open relationship where I was free to sleep with other people terrified her, and getting married was more important than chasing the rainbow. Her original original idea had just been a free pass to see if she was missing something in her life and how important it was to her. I told her it was just a pass for her to date women or have a full relationship. She couldn't tell me exactly what she wanted, and I said that didn't sound very monogamous to me or very fair, and she agreed, and that's why she was giving up on exploring those feelings. Next, she brought up the notes I sent out, canceling our save the date notices for our wedding day. She said she was getting all kinds of calls about what happened and was caught unaware about what they were even talking about at first. She was upset I did that without talking to her first. I reminded her that she lobbed 2 grenades in my lap, coming out as bisexual, and that she cheated on me, then left and wouldn't talk with me except for a cryptic "I'm sorry" text followed by silence. While I never said anything other than we were having issues and had to postpone the wedding, evidently there was speculation that she had cheated on me. She switched gears and said we could still get back on track and get married next spring. No, because now when one of us is out of town, my mind will be thinking about you cheating again, especially after coming out and wanting to have an affair to explore your sexuality. I said maybe after couples therapy we could get back to a good place again, but not by the end of the year, and it would be foolish to start planning and making financial commitments before we even knew if therapy was going to work. Plus, I wanted a prenup to protect everything I brought into the marriage as well as my future retirement savings. Plus, she would forfeit any equity if we bought a house. When she protested, I said if you plan to be faithful and not change your mind later, then it would never be a thing. Just something to give me some peace of mind. It's been an ongoing conversation for the last few days. Betty wants to rug sweep the incident at the wedding and move forward with our wedding. Exploring her sexuality is not worth sacrificing our relationship in her opinion. And for now, we are back together and planning on counseling soon. Also, in a post-clarity moment, I realize I rushed to embrace the idea of an open relationship to allow Betty the freedom to explore her new feelings, and I'm not as willing now to consider that option. I think separation is the better option, breaking up if you will, till we both decide what direction our future lies, and if it is with each other. It's not what I want, but I also don't want to spend the next 3 to 5 years together only for her to change her mind or cheat on me one day. Then in the comment section, OP clarifies on what he meant by saying chasing the rainbow and if he has a problem with her sexuality and said, chasing the rainbow was her analogy, not mine. I didn't have a problem with her sexuality. The problem I had was that she cheated. Granted, she only made out with someone and wanted permission to have sex with someone else. Male or female, that is unacceptable in what I thought was our monogamous relationship. Being bisexual doesn't give you the right to have sex with someone else while you are already in an exclusive relationship. It just means you are attracted to twice as many people. And I do want to be with her and support her, but that doesn't mean I support her dating other people to explore her sexuality while in a relationship with me. Then OP elaborates on the best case scenario is probably breaking up and said, most of the scenarios in my head end up in disaster. Breaking up and letting her find her center might be the best option. If in 3 to 6 months we both find we want to start over, then maybe it stands a better chance than us trying to just move forward the way we are now. But in 3 to 6 months, I think I will have moved on to something less complicated. The fact that she thought I wouldn't be enough and had to go experience something different to fulfill herself could be a deal breaker for me. And then OP gave one final comment and said, we have counseling scheduled to see what is best for us. Until we firmly resolve this issue, we won't be getting married. I don't want to have to deal with her cheating or her wanting to open the marriage years down the line and then possibly getting divorced. Hey hubby, so at the wedding I discovered I was bisexual and I kissed with the girl and maybe did something else I won't tell because everyone's sworn to secrecy. But anyway, I need to explore my sexuality and you need to stay home, okay? Just don't do anything, don't date anybody, watch some Netflix, have some buddies over, watch the game. Anyway, I gotta go. Girl, what? Did she think that was gonna work? I will say I'm not hating on her for that, but you know, maybe I'll chalk it up to a lot of emotions and a lot of things swirling around in her head and maybe challenging her conservative upbringing. But, you know, that plan wasn't going to work. I do have to say, I kind of agree with OP's second to last comment, which is, I feel like if this is going to continue, then they might need to, you know, do their own thing for 3 to 6 months, come back, and then have a fresh start. Because if they try to do it now, I don't know. There's a lot of underlying stuff. And then as OP also mentioned, in 3 to 6 months, you might just find something less complicated. And also, the underlying feeling that you weren't enough for your partner, that can eat away at you. But I feel as if there's
just a few too many factors here preventing this from them ending in happily ever after. They can be happy alone, but the relationship, I don't know. There just might be too much going on there to, reasonably have it continue and also have them be happy. But anyway, that's what I think. And you are allowed to disagree if you want. But anyway, guys, we are at the end of the long-ass video. I love doing these, honestly, to be honest. The stories were juicy today. A lot of overlapping themes and stuff. And then there was the one about the tattoo. But anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Have a really good day. Thanks for sticking through with us. And bye-bye!